hate it, and they're like, why is Hollywood trying to ruin my children? Yeah. Why is Hollywood trying to? And so when they say that the Hollywood people are going after your kids, and like with the Alex Jones thing, it's a literal thing. He's literally saying that like, you know, famous people are taking undocumented children. By undocumented, I don't mean from another country. I mean that they never got a social security number. They were raised underground as mole children. And they're just like, the government doesn't know they exist, but the Hollywood people are taking these children and using them to harvest a substance called adrenochrome, which they used as a drug. Yeah, so adrenochrome, I think you can synthesize adrenochrome in a laboratory, right?
Adrenochrome is just it's oxidized epinephrine.
Yeah, so
isn't that like the blue stuff from The Boys or something, right? Isn't that what that is?
I've never seen that.
Yeah,
what's the noise?
Compound B, yeah. But yeah, you can buy it from like, you know, lab supply, like people who supply labs with chemicals, right? Like it's
right.
It's
there's no reason to use a human being to get this stuff.
Yeah.
If it was a good drug, you could synthesize this stuff in a lab for much cheaper than whatever it would take to harvest, right? So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't pass like the, you know, it shouldn't pass the reality filter. Unfortunately, these people don't have a reality filter, and they're already in the mode of like, I want to hate Hollywood. I want to hate rich people, but not rich people writ large. The rich people I can see. And the rich people you can see are the ones that are in movies, the ones that are, you know, showing up on red carpets and stuff like that. The rich people that you can see that you perceive to be the only rich people in the world. And then you think that like, oh, but capitalists? What are capitalists doing? Well, they're probably just helping the economy. Let's leave them alone. They're probably not doing anything bad. We don't need to check on the capitalists. Let's check on the Hollywood people, though.
Once you start getting drawn into it, it's like all the old like theories about the Illuminati and the is it 13 families or whatever, right? Like, you know, and the Rothschilds and the fucking and George Soros and all of this shit. So it's absolutely,
Bill Gates, for example.
They absolutely do target like
about 2 days ago. I want to say about 2 days ago, there was a Newt Gingrich on Fox News had I believe referred to George Soros. But yeah, he didn't just refer to George Soros. He called Democratic blue cities like George Soros elected politicians. He specifically said George Soros elected. And the hostess is on Fox News. This is Fox News I'm talking. Immediately just said, cut him off. It was just like, well, we should talk about.
And then they apologized the next day. They said, this is a place for open and free debate, and we shouldn't have cut off.
Vadim, are you trying to? Vadim wants something.
Yeah. I just for both my sake and the sake of the audience, I don't think like our subject topic has really been clarified. And
this is not a spicy take. You're very based in saying this. Yeah. You're very based in saying this. We do usually start off with some free-form conversation and stuff like that. Usually that's just about how everybody's mood is. But yeah, we kind of got into the subject matter. So let's talk about the subject matter that we're introducing today. We're going to be talking about truth and the concept of truth. We've already sort of introduced the idea that there can be multiple truths. I don't think anybody in this panel believes that like, yo, there's one objective truth, and it's the truth I've internalized, and everybody else should get with that because that's the best truth because I've got everything figured out. I don't think anybody in this panel is going to come, you know, with that take. Unfortunately, that is a take that people give. But so, you know, what we're finding today is in the boomer days, truth was not necessarily objective. In fact, there's a lot of examples you could find where it really wasn't objective. You could look at how the freedom riders were treated back in the day, like by the actual media. You could look at like how that stuff was actually grokked by people, but it was more unified in that there was like 3 major networks or something like that, and everybody would watch the news on these 3 major networks. So at least everybody was like operating from the same set of facts, I guess, if you will. Obviously, that's bifurcated in the current media age, and based on your political views, you can get your news fed to you from a multitude of different sources. And you know, this is some of those boomers who were watching that unified view are the same ones that are on Facebook receiving information from really bad sources, right? You know, these are people who have experienced at least like a unified, you know, truth of a country, of a people. And they're now kind of thinking that they stuck with the truth, but that everybody else has somehow gone off the rails. So they don't see the sort of like mind prison that they've been put into through their like Facebook feed and all this stuff. But
so
anyways,
our topic was what, like truth in the Trump era, QAnon conspiracies, and how we can maybe pull our fractured reality back together.
Yeah, our concept basically that we're looking at here is what is truth, like what is acceptable, what is an acceptable range of truth, and yeah, what do you do with people who are operating with wildly manipulated truth and that kind of stuff. So I do want to go around and just give everybody a chance to introduce themselves now that we've sort of covered the depth and the breadth of the topic, and then we can focus in on more like little aspects of this in terms of Alex Jones, QAnon or whatever. But yeah, let's start off with Riley.
Oh, with me? All right. Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Riley Grace Rochong. I'm sorry, what do you want me to say specifically again?
Okay, so we're just going to give a little, tell people about who you are, what you're doing, where they can find you, just kind of like what you're interested, what your angle is on the stream. It doesn't really have to, you don't really have to introduce the topic or anything, or your take on the topic or anything. Just about you, Riley.
Okay. Yeah, hey everyone, my name is Riley Grace Rochong. I am a YouTube, Twitch political streamer. I'm a law student. I do this in my spare time because, I don't know, I enjoy it in a weird way. I don't know, as far as my angle for this, I'm not sure if I have a specific goal in mind. There are definitely some things that have been said so far that I probably have mixed views on. Like, for example, and we can get into this later, like, there are some things which could have different levels of truth, but I also think that you get into a difficult kind of gray area where you have some people that try to say that that's the case with situations or things which have, like, one definitive truth. Like, someone who tries to argue that, like, oh, well, you say that 2 + 2 = 4. Well, I say 2 + 2 might equal 5. Haven't you considered that, right? Like, sometimes I don't think that's reasonable, but, we can explore that later.
Yeah, like the reality distortions, I think I mentioned, but yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm just looking to have a chill chat. Enjoy my Friday.
Nice. Signatural, we haven't seen you in a few weeks. How have you been doing?
I have been doing pretty all right. I've still been interested in I've still been going on panels and everything. I've been streaming less. I'm considering wondering what my solo content is going to be. That doesn't mean I'm not going to stream though. Please follow me at Signatural27 at twitch.tv. But I was going to say that I've mainly been just broiled up in just like a lot of different things going on in the Twitch community so far. I'm mostly here just as to try to partake in a great discussion as I usually am.
Nice. Yeah, we can always count on you for that sort of thing. Yeah. So Proud Communist.
Hello, I'm Proud Communist. Most people call me Proco. You can find me on Twitter at Proud Communist. I don't really do Twitch streams or anything like that. What I'm known for is being the admin of a fairly large Discord server, Bo the Fifth Column. I also am your neighborhood IRL bard, so I do a lot of music things. I do a lot of artsy things. I currently have a GoFundMe that if you donate to, you can ask for a portraiture of some sort. I also tend to push education. I tend to push optimism. I tend to push praxis in our Discord and community events. So we'll have video presentations from people from the ACLU, or we'll have video presentations from different sort of mindsets in regards to how to kind of breed more empathy in the individual and understanding of other people's perspectives. Kind of those types of mindsets. That's the current vein of thought that I'm currently pushing in both the Discord and on my Twitter profiles, as well as in real life when I'm creating my music. And I'm also currently composing my first album, so that one should be coming soon, hopefully, depending on whether I'll get the funding to get to a studio soon.
Yeah, Proco is actually the source of a lot of my wisdom, right? There's like we watched the Adam Neely video that you had sent, that you had recommended on Twitter, And like that was just like, for me, that was like a Rosetta Stone in terms of understanding like the effect of privilege in any number of fields of study, and the way that, like, you know, anyway, the established view that's thought of as the objective truth, right, is actually the white view. So, but no, Proco highly recommended. Vadim.
Hey, what's up? My name's Vadim, also known as Hey It's Vadim, and some people know me, I guess, as Creationist Cat, although whether or not I'm actually Creationist Cat, some people say that's a crazy conspiracy theory. You could find me at the channel Creationist Cat, which, if you were curious, is sort of like, I don't know, left-leaning, political slash pop culture discussions through like I guess you could say like an Adult Swim type lens. It's a sort of a comedy channel. And you can also find me at Hey It's Vadim on Twitter. But just real briefly, I think that the discussion that we're having today, I mean, this honestly, this sort of stuff worries me more than almost anything right now. I just honestly, I mean, we can talk about possible solutions to what I think is a humongous problem, but I just don't see it getting any better. I mean, especially when you think about things like the impact that the technology of deepfakes will have on the internet and things like that. I just think that dissemination of information and just the internet as a whole, which could potentially be a great tool in order to teach people, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's just as destructive as it is constructive. And I guess I'll say very quickly, because I think it's apropos, that I recently debated a 9/11 truther, which was an insane experience. This guy was like 50 bottles of brain force without the brain, and just total, like, you know, unplug your brain from the Matrix, dude, type of guy. And I do think that there was a rupture in the internet and the world in general when 9/11 occurred. The conspiracy theories of 9/11 really reinvigorated conspiracy culture in general. And I think that a lot of what we see today is an offshoot of that. But anyway, I'll just use that as like a launch pad for things that I'll say later.
Nice.
And give it over to someone else.
Mr. Let me actually pronounce this right. Do you pronounce it like G2K? Is that how it's said?
Mr. Geek or Mr. G, however you want.
Actually, can I say something really quick?
Sure, yeah.
Sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to let Sig, how do you pronounce it? Signatural 27.
Signatural.
I don't know if it's the same thing for me as everyone else, but for me, his camera is pretty frozen, and I don't know if you realize that maybe there was
I can see
something
him.
that could be adjusted. I just
Vadim's just commenting that it's taking a long time to update. Yeah, see, so you've got that for a while, and then we'll see another image in a few seconds, right? So we're seeing an image about every 5 seconds, if that helps at all, Sig. I don't know if that's something on your end, or I can also...
fine for me.
I'm fine with it. I just So are you noticing this, Vadim, on the whereby, or are you noticing this on the stream? I'm noticing it on the whereby.
On the whereby.
Really?
Okay, so then that's on your end, I guess. Sig. Yeah, if you can try, I don't know if you need to like re-log on or something like that, or
it's not happening for me.
Fine on the stream, then I'm fine.
It's actually not. It's actually, I can see what you're talking about. I can see the same thing that you're talking about, Vadim. So it's yeah.
Is everything better?
It's still, we'll deal with it for now. Yeah, I mean, maybe try to work on it if you can do anything. If not, it's not a big deal. We can still hear you. So, you know, we'll get your take. Okay, so yeah, Mr. Geek.
Yeah, hi everyone, MRG2EK, well, Twitch.tv or Twitter/MRG2EK. I talk about politics, I do RIA content, I do overlay, thumbnails, stuff like that, like basically like everything you need for Twitch, YouTube. I also co-host the Hippie DP Roundtable with Dylan Burns, and I have a recruitment show on this Sunday, so yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I was on your hippy dippy recruitment panel not too long ago. It was a lot of fun. So, Vivian.
Hey everybody, I'm Mixed Vivian Wolf on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm a historian, anti-fascist, and extremist researcher, currently focusing in on QAnon. So I guess that's what I've got to bring to the panel is the last sort of shit. It's probably going on about 4 or 5 months now. I've been spending time inside different QAnon groups, speaking to QAnon people, chilling out in their Zoom calls and stuff, because they're all they're not all boomers, but quite a lot of them are either boomers or like soccer mums or whatever, and they love their fucking Zoom chats. So I guess like that's sort of the perspective that I have to sort of bring to the table is that and sort of a general sort of knowledge of cults and extremist movements in the United States for the last, I don't know, like 50 years or so, going back to like Waco, Ruby Ridge, and Jonestown, and all of that, which I kind of would challenge like Vadim's perception, actually, in when he says about. I think a lot of stuff did come out of the 9/11 conspiracy theories, but I think it's just a natural continuation. Like we saw a massive uptick it preceding Y2K as well, and.
No. I definitely agree with that. I mean, I don't think that it just kind of came out of nowhere, but I do think that it just really, it was like a benchmark.
It's one trickle among many. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I think it was a huge trickle, but we could talk about it later.
Yeah, and Vivian's definitely somebody that's been doing putting a lot of work into like understanding the truth that this section of the internet holds. Like what is truth to them. I'm really curious about like from what I've heard, QAnon's really been spreading. It started off as just an American movement, but now there's people all over the world putting the breadcrumbs together and following the Q drop.
Germany, UK, Japan. There's literal like Q stuff that's just recently been sort of like Q leaflets being distributed in Japan at the moment.
Oh my god!
Really interesting stuff. The Japanese media have just picked up on it. They're comparing it to Aleph Null, which is like a cult splinter group from Aum Shinrikyo, which was the terror group that committed the Tokyo sarin gas subway attacks. A couple of other extremist researchers have been like comparing it to that for a while as well. So, like, I think that's a valid comparison, which is worth looking into. But anyway,
did you know? I just have to say this real quick. Did you know that the cult leader of that group had his own anime series?
Yeah, yeah, Shoko Asahara. He's
I did not.
He's a thing.
When are we getting our hold on? When are we getting our Charles Manson anime? Huh? What happened? What's going on in Japan?
Coming.
There's a Life of Karl Marx anime done by the People's Republic. Has anybody seen that?
Yeah.
Let's not it's just really easy. I have ADHD. It's really easy for me to spread. Let's go to Polar. Polar, how are you doing? This is your first time on BirdBrains, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I stream. That's probably the important part. I've been a little busy this past week. I haven't been able to stream my last 2 stream schedules, but I will be back tomorrow. On my stream, I tend to talk about like politics, specifically like policies, effective policy, economics, healthcare, crap like that. Okay, it's all the boring stuff that no one wants to talk about. But recently, I've really been getting into some form of philosophy and how to effectively develop arguments, and that's something that I'm really going to start working heavily onto my channel. But I will start doing a lot more debates because it's something that I do enjoy to do. But for this topic, I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation because it's a really multifaceted conversation. We could easily go into how this is spread, the multiple reasons why like conspiracies and these alternative forms of medias have spread, or we could talk about why we value truth and whether even though we may not have an objective truth, some truths, quote unquote, may have more utility than others. And I think that's an interesting thing as well.
Absolutely. And Vera.
I'm Vera. I go on political panels sometimes. My main interest, I guess, is in the political metagame, which of course includes propaganda and conspiracies and things like that as well. In terms of my background, I actually sort of grew up in a cult, and a lot of the, say, QAnon talking points are things I actually grew up with in a version of in the 80s. So it's been exciting to see some familiar things, shall we say.
Yeah, yeah. And so by that, are you referring to the Satanic Panic, I'm guessing, or?
In part, but even outside that, a lot of the things were there in nascent form. So the environment that I was in was very into like Birch Society style narratives and things like that. And
Did you say John Birch Society?
Yes. And also like anti-gay politics and those sorts of things where the sort of that intersected with the child abuse narratives as well. Like all of the elements were there like decades and decades ago.
Yeah, we've covered
just a
this
few
on
details like adrenochrome and things are relatively new, I think, but
yeah, we've actually covered the Satanic Panic extensively, and I don't know if maybe when I started, people weren't sure why I was obsessed with it so much. They thought it was just like a cringe thing that I was like kind of laughing at, but I really wasn't. I guess I was trying to make the connection between that and the Alex Jones narrative about Hollywood being full of child predators and just seeing that this thing that had really been destructive. I mean, we're talking about there's people still in jail, innocent people that were a lot of times LGBT people. They were definitely outside. So what would happen in the 80s is that there would be in small communities a narrative would start up around somebody who was an outsider. That person could be an outsider because they were, openly LGBT. Person could be an outsider because they practiced like paganism. For whatever reason, this person was designated as an outsider, and the rumor mill would start up, and like, oh yeah, and pretty soon it would get to child abuse. And the whole town would get obsessed with this idea that this person, that there's just something not right with them. They're abusing their children. They're abusing someone else's children. If they work at a daycare, that's, basically. So there's people still in jail from what would happen. And what would happen was that, like, not only would the public in the town, the townspeople would get taken in by this narrative, the cops would get taken in by the narrative. And that was this is where it intersects with our fucked up system of justice. Judges believe cops. Even if the judge is like, smart enough to know that this is kind of a witch hunt. There's not really a lot of substance here. The cops would be there to be like, no, actually, I saw this. No, actually, I saw this, right? And so there was enough evidence to convict innocent people, and some of them are still in jail to this day. And that freaked me out. And I knew that this hadn't ended, and I knew that this was connected to the Alex Jones shit that was going on now. I think at the time people maybe took Alex Jones less seriously than they currently do, just because he's pretty ridiculous. But yeah, this is a really destructive dynamic in, do we want to say Western culture? Or do we want to say human culture? I guess we can talk about that. Where it comes from, how universal maybe or not universal it might be.
The spreading and proliferation of fake news has always been with us, right? It's just that it's gotten like 10 times worse since like going online, quote unquote, has been a thing. Even back when you're talking about back in like the boomer days, right? These sorts of things existed largely, and they're largely driven. Even now, less so now as much. But even back then, a lot of them were driven by like news media, corporations and things like that. A lot of it was profit driven. It's really weird. You told me about this panel at the time I was reading this book called The Image, A Guide to Pseudo Events in America. It's this book written in the 60s by this guy named Daniel J. Bordston, and it's he argues that Americans have a false image of what news actually is, and that like a lot of what we consider news are actually like these things he calls pseudo events that are creations by like corporate media. Like for example, the mayor like snipping a ribbon to like open something, or like a hotel's 30th anniversary when they never had any previous celebrations before, right? To sort of add legitimacy to specific kinds of events and places. Which are like super interesting. I think a great example of this is something like a Black Friday, as an example of something that like didn't actually exist for very long, but then like corporations just kind of willed it into existence, and now it's just like a thing.
Well, it's very convenient. Yeah. Wait, do you mean it's not a thing as in like stores don't think about this in terms of like they're in the red until this date, and when they get in the black, like that was the original meaning of Black Friday, was when stores in the United States actually start to turn a profit, and that was like essentially right before Christmas was the idea that up until then they were earning money to keep their store going, and after that they were earning money to actually put in their pocket or build the business or whatever else was like the sort of the narrative that went with that, right? So are you saying that like, you know, that wasn't really how stores like thought of things, or are you saying that like that the people showing up, you know, on Black Friday to shop wasn't really a thing?
It wasn't really like a major, like it wasn't considered a holiday in the sense that it wasn't.
Okay, so the people showing up was the part that wasn't real.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with my phone here. That makes sense. And yeah. I mean, like this is the thing. As soon as like news arose, some company owner probably got the idea that they could do this sort of thing, that they could make their own news story, that they could use the news. And like really, when we think about the model of how news works in this country, and even how it worked back in the boomer days, it was always advertising supporting the news. News very rarely makes money. I guess it does now, like Fox News makes money, but like back in the day, the news was the loss leader. And that like, you know, you were essentially, you know, that like sometimes it would like operate at a loss. And it was considered like, if you want to be a television station, you've got to do your public duty by covering important stuff for people. Like you got to be the voice of society in some way, right? This was like the toll to get on the highway, essentially of being a broadcaster. And so, you know, it was considered like a public duty rather than something they'd make money about it. They were very concerned too about keeping the editorial and the ad revenue parts of the news apparatus apart, right? So if this can talk to this, then this can tell this, hey, don't say that, that's bad for our sponsor, right? And this was always happening probably, but they would always try to make the they would go another way to you know, kind of keep those people from talking. If you ever see the movie Network, that's what this is all about. Like it's literally about like what happens when advertising kind of takes over editorial. You know, it's a sad state, and that's definitely where we're at now. Whoever made that movie, you know, they've seen their prediction, you know, come into, you know, reality in so many different ways.
I think whenever we talk about what the news has become, I think it's really important that we talk about the wars in the Middle East, right? So the original, like for example, the invasion of Kuwait by Iraq, and initially we were thinking, well, how does this have to do with the news, right? But when we actually look at what news has become, we look directly back to these wars, because during these wars we saw the introduction of what we consider 24-hour news, right? So before, there seemed to be nightly news, right? 1 or 2 hours of what your daily news would be. And that would be something that would encompass everything, so there'd be a lot less room of fluff, I guess you could say, even though there was still some issues. But it got maximized to the worst point, because when we have wars, there's constant updates, constant battle updates, talks from generals. There was consistent content that just kept flowing and flowing and flowing. But what happens when there is no war is, well, a media company doesn't want to lose its profits, so they're going to try their best to keep that content going, right? So I would say that there seem to be two distinctions, right? So I guess you could say like places like CNN and like MSNBC kind of leaned heavily into repeating the same news over and over again. I don't know if you guys have like tried watching CNN, but like it's like breaking news. Same story over and over and over. Same with MSNBC, right? This is a way for them to keep their 24 hours news cycles going, right?
Yeah.
But Fox News will introduce like really weird stories, like more entertainment based, right? So I think a major issue with this is there's just not as much actual content that's going out, and people are subbing in different forms of content or repeating. And the right seem to heavily profit off of this, right? So introducing all these like stories and shit like that are somewhat true, or like in introducing some forms of like alternative truths have been really harmful. And we see that I think someone mentioned this, like how how like places like Fox News and the right will talk about, like, at least the conspiracy type of right people will talk about like certain individuals that are rich, right? And like it's not everyone. And this can be clearly seen with people like Tucker Carlson, right? Tucker Carlson engages in some really weird forms of conspiracy, but as we know, Tucker Carlson literally has a bunch of billionaire sponsors. So he's engaging in these forms of semi-conspiracy, but is heavily profiting off of it because people want to see it, because there isn't very much news actually going on anymore.
Yeah, I think one thing that goes on is that like what we're used to seeing on television is sort of a dopamine cycle, by which I mean you watch a television show and there's like a narrative arc to it, right? And that's what we tune in for, is that narrative arc. Okay, and like so many times when you're watching something and somebody's like, "Why are you wasting time on this?" And you're like, "I started this and I need to know what happened. I got to see, did they find the killer or not? I mean, I know they're gonna find the killer, but I want to see
the Kingdom Hearts franchise." Okay.
Yeah, exactly. How do they find the killer? So you want to see this, and when you apply that shit to news, that's really problematic, because there's not a lot of news stories that are just like gonna be like, it never ends on one hand, and like, you know, to the degree to which it does, it might even be like kind of a false narrative that you're getting that's more for satisfaction or but yeah, no, like it keeps people watching, and like you said, that whole like this just breaking news, we're breaking some new news. They make you feel like some major event's happening right now, and obviously a major, you know, world-changing event isn't happening at every single second, but they do have to keep up that kind of appearance.
Like they bring on, like they bring up a story, they ask a question. That question might be like a leading question or something. Like whenever I browse like you know, Google News or whatever, right, on my phone or computer or what have you, you know, typically when you look at like the different headlines between like something like a CNN article, it'd say like, I don't know, athletes continue to protest you know, police brutality, and then like the Fox News headline will say, Trump said thing about athletes protesting police brutality. And this is how you would find out about the athletes doing the thing, is that somebody saying something about it that they don't actually like or something like that, right? That's like the extension, but that's what actually starts to, you know, that's what actually starts to make the rounds a lot better, that the algorithm that like people that browse that news site will probably want to click on a lot more, okay, rather than actually just looking about the story in and of itself.
I think one of the other factors here is so we've talked about facts and how those are presented in the media and those sorts of things. A really key term here, I think, to think about is narrative. So what happened when we went to the 24-hour news cycle is that there was a compelling motivation for narrative building in a way that there wasn't before. And also a need to essentially create story arcs out of these events in a way that wasn't as much of a factor for the nightly news previously. And that's one of the things that has driven a lot of this, like the coming unmoored in, or the degree to which like the whole discourse has become more unmoored has been essentially the product of, in some respects, of news services trying to shoehorn the current events into their overarching storyline in particular ways. And that undermines trust in the media, and it also, you know, for good reason, honestly. And it also creates situations where the way that the narrative has been bent opens the door for sketchier counter narratives as well.
I definitely do think that you know, that the weaknesses of mainstream media, if you will, and that's a term that I usually, I don't know, it sort of sounds like lamestream media. I don't always use it, but the weaknesses of media certainly account for some of this phenomenon. But I think that there's a lot more to it than just that. I think that, I mean, we've already talked about kind of how the internet is a tool of that. I think it's just an extension basically of paranoid or maybe not religious thinking. Yeah, religious thinking, conspiratorial thinking. I think that I basically think that what we're witnessing here is a transition that's occurring. I don't know if this is too much of a jump here,
but I think that we're in the middle of a century in which we are going to see, at least in the Western world, a transfer of like conspiratorial thinking going from primarily religion to either conspiracies in general or a mixture of religion and conspiracies.
That's interesting. Do you think that those mentalities come from sort of the same place? Actually interested in that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think anything that, I mean, to me, most religions can sort of, I mean, it depends on how one practices it, but it can sort of be thought of as a cult, and they all promote to certain degrees, even though that there are some people out there who I think can be religious in a productive way. I'm not like saying that like I hate it entirely, but yeah, I think that in general it comes from the same place, the desire, because it's a desire to kind of to explain things that some people find unexplainable. And what Ask Vera was saying earlier, I forget exactly what it was that I'm trying to connect to right here, but yeah, I think that one of the main reasons why we see conspiracy culture is because there are so many people who can't grasp the fact that certain occurrences that are really either chaotic, horrible, or tragic, or just humongous in scope and nature can have simple explanations or simplistic explanations. And you know, a lot of it has to do with kind of people coping with the horror that they're seeing in the world and trying to find a way in which to explain it. You know, the idea of 19 hijackers just hijacking a plane and causing 9/11. It's for some people, like, they need to create something like you were talking before, a more complex narrative, and something that it just is to them, something as simple as that, as the actual truth, is not compelling enough. And you know, it also doesn't give them a large enough target to, if you will, to kind of home in on. I hope I'm like a little underslept today, so I'm not as articulate as I typically am.
You're completely fine. I thought it was actually interesting.
I hope you're getting where I'm coming from with all that.
Yeah, I actually thought it was an interesting comparison, because I mean, I can. Or sorry, go on. I didn't know if you were finished. Yeah,
no, I was just going to finish the sentence just saying that, like, yeah, I do think that basically, essentially what I'm saying is that I think conspiracies are often a coping mechanism to deal with the horrors of the world.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can definitely see a lot of similarities between that and like the ways that religion has manifested over the course of history. I guess I would maintain that there are different ways that religion can manifest, and like especially early on in history, you see religion manifest in a way similar to what you've said, but I might even extend it to be a way of organizing the world for you or a group of people in such a way as it creates like both a sense of understanding it and a sense of order, right? So like it's so like you have religion, and I guess in this case conspiracy theories, right, both fulfilling this sense of like it both helps explain things that you don't understand, but it also justifies your own preconceived biases, right? Like if you want to believe fundamentally that, you know, strongman Trump is the best person to run the country and maybe the world, I don't know, it depends on how far these people want to extend it, then the conspiracy theory both explains why he's not a total shit of a person, but also kind of justifies why he should be in charge, right? In the same way that religion sort of like justified organizing society way back in the day. And I mean, like, that still is pretty prevalent nowadays, but I would say that nowadays you see a lot of different manifestations of religion, right? Where it accomplishes a lot of other purposes as well, beyond just like creating that sort of worldview. So no, I tend to agree with that take.
What's the difference between this and, say, I don't know, everybody's getting all head up about critical race theory recently. Critical race theory is sort of a theory that helps to order the world, helps to, you know, justify preconceived biases, helps to, and so on and so forth. Like, what's the difference between sort of your conspiracy theories and religions and something like critical race theory, or like liberalism or socialism or anything else really. It feels like this definition's like too broad and too vague.
Sorry, could you elaborate on the question? I'm not sure if I fully understand it.
Shit. Well, you just said that you feel like people, like, religion's taken on kind of like a broader meaning, and it can be, the religious mindset can be applied to a bunch of different situations, right? And mainly you talked about like conspiracy theories and so on, and like the belief in Trump and all of that, and the way that it helps to organize the world for people. But like, what is the difference between that and something like critical race theory, or or Marxist economics, or whatever? Like,
that directed at me or Riley?
Well, I mean,
I suppose I'm having trouble seeing what the similarity is to begin with, right? Like, I'm having trouble like disproving the negative, because I don't know what the similarity is that you're kind of alluding to that's implied by what we've said so far.
Yeah, no, it was just some things that you said about like how it organizes the world for people, right? It's like this, because I would say that exact same thing about QAnon, that like that it helps people put things into like a neat little package where they understand what's going on. There's this shadow war between good and evil. They're on the side of good, and eventually, like, Trump's going to expose all the pedos and usher in a era of world peace. And obviously, this is kind of like fantasist, right? But like in the way you described it, like being able to neatly understand the world, right? Like a lot of these kinds of theories, like I said, critical race theory and like class-based sort of socialist theory or whatever, even intersectionality, right? All of these things help us, like, give us frameworks by which to understand the world. So like there's got to be a substantial difference between these and those in order to make those conspiracy theories and stuff like more worthy of criticism, or I guess more spooky or dangerous.
Can I ask a question about your question real quick?
Sure. Let's go meta questions.
Are you essentially asking how can we determine successful ways in which to figure out, disseminate truth about the world from bullshit, basically?
Well, I guess I was trying very vaguely to lead us down a path of like Socratic reasoning. So I was like, I would say that the difference.
I mean, I think I understand the question. Do you mind if I try to take a crack at it?
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I think that essentially, I know that Polar had his hand up, so I'll pass this to him after this. But I think that essentially a major difference between something like this and, I mean, like, I don't know, like, religion gets into a weird gray area. It depends on like what kind of religion that you're looking at, right? But especially like when we're comparing like critical race theory or like intersectionality or other of similar schools of thought with something like conspiracy theories, right? I think that there's a fundamental difference of whether or not you are like putting the cart before the horse or not, right? With a lot of conspiracy theories, I would say that a lot of people are motivated first in, like, a lot of people begin at the conclusion and try to work themselves back so that they could justify what they want to believe at the front end. Whereas like a lot of like intersectional thought usually starts with looking at the world as it is and trying to build a very descriptively correct model, right? And that is harder to do, right? And I would say that that's a reason why it's a lot harder for, some people to understand like the concepts of like intersectionality and why it's become such a politicized idea, right? Because like it's a very unintuitive way to think if you are used to like beginning at what you want to believe, even if you don't necessarily recognize that you're putting the cart before the horse. It's different from the way that I think a lot of people in contemporary politics tend to think about the things that they believe, That'd be like my short answer.
The same though. If you're sort of like, so you have. Remember, we're talking about truth here. So like you have this perception that certain classes of people seem to have it worse than other classes, right? And like intersectionality is like it is a way of like attempting to explain that. Right?
I mean, it's not so much about my personal perception. I mean, I adopt what I maintain to be like large academic consensus, right? Like I try to base my beliefs on what is, to the extent that we are able to, empirically validatable, right? And that is harder to do, but that's usually but that's usually how I'll like base most of my opinions is trying to base on evidence. I mean, my slogan is evidence-based arguments for advocating and defending civil rights. You know, I tried to, because otherwise we can't know infallibly like what the capital T truth is. But I think that's one of the best ways or the most reliable ways to be able to figure out what it is.
The Q people would say the same, right?
Well, I mean, there's a difference between like relying on like studies that are able to account for things like confirmation bias, just as an example, whereas people are definitely like engaging in what they would consider to be like a heavy quotations journalism, but then extrapolating like all these random different points of data, which, yeah, if you present them in a certain way, it might kind of make something look compelling. But like the fact of the matter is there's so many problems with that. Like, for example, usually it completely disregards something confirmation bias, which specifically would account for the issue like where people like pick and choose which data points like presuppose the conclusion that they want to get to. Like I remember in Vadim's debate with the 9/11 truther, that was like something that I was thinking about the entire time, like all these different little data points. I mean, this is the problem with anecdotal evidence, right? Is that like if you just like put all of these like individual stories or like small little facts in a narrative, it can look compelling, but it really doesn't tell us anything probabilistically about the world. You know, it just tells us that these individual instances happened, nothing really outside of them.
I think that when we're getting into like conspiracy and like facts and everything and reason and logic and all these sorts of things, I've kind of got a little bit of a doomer take when it comes to those that are like if you're at the point where you believe that like this pizza place is a front for Democratic politicians to like be with like children or something, I think you're at a point in which you're not operating off facts and logic, and maybe you believe you are, maybe you've decided to believe that you are, but I think that, like this idea of like persuading people with this sort of thing, it might not exactly be I don't know if it's worthwhile, quote unquote. Like, I don't know if it's like something that we should even be like trying to go ahead of, because it seems like this is more of an emotional, like just sort of thing. Like just like Riley said here, like they want this to happen. They want Democrats, like for example, to be evil for like Pizzagate, right? They want them to be bad. They want them to be evil. They want them to go against them. So they just like, you know, create these things in their head and just work backwards and came up with all of this ridiculous shit. You know,
Yeah,
and
I think it comes from like a fundamental kind of mistrust though of they can look around. So in the Fall of the Cabal, right? They talk about there's this whole line where the ladies the Fall of the Cabal is like a QAnon propaganda film. So like there's this whole line where the lady's narrating and she's saying, look at the world around you today. There's war, there's starvation, there's all these horrible things, right? And you're told that this is normal. This is just the way the world has to be, right? But it doesn't. That's sort of the line there, right? So like they recognize that they're in a world in which like really fucking horrible shit happens, and the institutions that tell them that they have answers to these problems clearly aren't solving those problems, and that kind of undermines, I think, any kind of faith in the system whatsoever, right? Like for the we're not talking about people who are going to spend a lot of time like reading academic studies or whatever, but they look around. Some people say they have the answers, and if they have the answers, why aren't these problems fixed anymore? And so naturally their line of reasoning from there can go to some really fucking crazy places, because they no longer trust like those institutions which actually spend a lot of time like putting research and money into like working out why shit is wrong, but not an awful lot of money into like actually fixing those problems.
So it's almost... it looks like Proco, did you want to get in? I saw your hand raised.
Go for it.
Muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
Is Proud Communist in our Discord?
Yeah, just in the Discord call.
Okay, so is she muted on? We'll go to Vadim, and then we'll give Proco a chance to work out her audio as she was Vadim.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that basically this is never going to be a cure-all, but foundationally, what needs to happen is that there are certain and let me tell a quick story, okay? I used to believe a lot of what I would call...
there you go. Got it.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I'll go after you.
Sure, no problem.
I used to believe what I now regard as kind of like either woo, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term, or like kind of new agey beliefs. I had a mother who kind of instilled a lot of those things. Like I believed in reincarnation. When I was very young, I believed like crystals could heal you and yada, yada, yada. And I held on to some of these beliefs until like somewhere in my 30s, or my late 20s, really. And a few years after 9/11, I had a bunch of friends who made me watch both this movie called Zeitgeist and Loose Change, which are these batshit conspiracy theory movies. And I watched them, and all my friends were like, "Oh my god, you got to see this! This is crazy!" And I watched it, and I immediately thought, like, "Okay, this is garbage. Like, there's no way this stuff can be true." But I didn't have the means to debunk it. And this is within the first few years of YouTube. And so I went on YouTube to try and find some 9/11 debunking, and I found a show called The Atheist Experience. And they did an episode on it. And then I guess I won't go into what happened after that, but there were all these things that I found by watching that show. Like first of all, I'd never heard, and I went to a pretty decent school, got good grades. I had never heard of things like academic peer review. And then I started watching the show a lot. They started talking about certain types of logical fallacies. And basically, the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because, I mean, very quickly after watching that show, I did become an atheist, and I kind of shed like all of these, kind of bullshit beliefs very quickly. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I was kind of stunned. I was like, wow, I was never taught about these things. And I think at like a very young age, ideally, we should be teaching kids why mechanisms like science itself should be trusted. I think that we should be teaching them things like logical fallacies and different aspects of both why certain types of truth are kind of reliable most of the time, and things like that. I guess my point is just that this will not be a cure-all, but I think that you have to get people, or the best thing to do is to get them young, while they're in school, and teach them, give them certain tools so that they can kind of within their lives have a higher chance of being able to disseminate truth from bullshit.
I mean, the problem with that is that we still have people who want to push in public schools teaching that evolution is just a theory, right?
Right.
Like, we like I think I agree, like in a very admirable sense with what you're saying, but like there's also this fundamental problem that like, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna say this, and maybe someone will want to fight me on this later, but we also do have like one major political party in at least America that is like pretty consistently anti-science. So like I hear you, but also like in order to be able to teach what you're presupposing, I think that like a lot of public schooling institutions would basically have to concede that like they would have to teach things like climate change is real, or like that LGBT people are something that should be talked about in sex ed, or or that evolution is actually like pretty fucking backed up by science, right? Like name any of a number of things, right? Like what we have right now is like, I think that a lot of people would probably principally agree with that, but we also, since at least in America we live in a two-party system, not sure how close we are to being able to achieve that in the future.
Yeah, and it's one of these issues that's kind of been given up on. Oh yeah, Proko, you were trying to get in.
Yes. So what I find fascinating about what we've been talking about so far, because I've just kind of been listening and writing on my sticky notes. So what I kind of more of a summary, and I'm really glad that Vadim brought up education in regards to scientific literacy. So what we're seeing right now, and what we have been seeing for a very long time, has been scientific illiteracy. People are not familiar with the scientific process. People are more conclusion based, and then they form evidence to corroborate that conclusion. We see it in religion, we see it in our history books, we see it in white supremacy. You can go on forever, right? And it's one of the most interesting aspects when you think of it in this sort of I wouldn't say narrative, but kind of framing. It was like all these things that we were dealing with QAnon, with Holocaust deniers, just people who have like crazy conspiracies, as we like to call them, are people who are simply scientifically illiterate. And it's not like an insult to be called scientifically illiterate, because it is a symptom of a larger issue, right? You could tie, if we wanted to, we could tie everything back to capitalism and people being exploited if we wanted to go down that rabbit hole. So what we're saying is that the consequence of the lack of scientific literacy, understanding the science process, is like discouraged almost in our society, understanding that. And so when you have people who are quote unquote credible, like our favorite Ben Shapiro, who literally says that he has a conclusion, and because he has that conclusion, he must find evidence in his faith, in his religion, to back up that conclusion, or in reality. If anyone remembers that when he said that,
Said it.
and it was to me, it was astounding, because I was thinking like, that's the exact opposite of faith, good sir. But I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I want to continue what I have to say. And so it's like, lacking the advantage of scientific literacy, we could see it as a class issue. You can see it as so many things. There's so many subjective viewpoints you could really attack this in. But I honestly think it's very simple. It's very much on our hierarchical basis, right? If you have the larger group of people lacking scientific literacy, their minds are malleable, right? They are easily influenced. And of course, those at the top are quote unquote betters who do have that scientific literacy. They can be one or two things, or even more. No one is black and white, right? They can take advantage of that, and you see that in capitalism with exploitation of the workers, or they can be screaming into the void, like you see, like us, who are a bunch of lefties who are scientifically literate and are just, screaming into the void, like, hey, this is not correct, as Riley was talking about earlier, coming to conclusions based off of evidence rather than the opposite way. And so these things that we are dealing with are symptoms of this issue that we have been dealing with since the beginning of time. Science is not a new thing, but where we are now is definitely a new thing. And then we have a bunch of other issues as well. We have things like pride, ego, social responsibility to not be incorrect, right? That sort of social responsibility where you are in a place of quote unquote power, and you have to be correct all the time. You have your priests. Priests are supposed to be correct. They're supposed to give information to the masses, to teach, to educate. So when they're wrong, it's that mindset, that ego. I cannot be wrong. I cannot be, even though a lot of religions and a lot of practices promote the practice of humility. That is another thing. That is another issue in regards to scientific literacy. You cannot be wrong. People in power cannot be wrong. It is impossible to be wrong. If we are wrong, what does that mean for everything that we have done? Not to mention the premise of trauma in our society. If this traumatic experience that we are currently being forced to indulge in with police brutality, with racism, understanding these traumas that are intergenerational, what does that mean for people who have engaged in those traumas? This kind of coalesces into this huge bubble that is about to burst, this paradigm shift that people are recognizing that they refuse to be wrong. It can't be this complex issue, because if it was this complex issue, then what does that say about me? What does that say about the behavior I have engaged in? What does that say about the behavior my friends have engaged in, my family members, my partners, my parents, etc., etc., etc.? So when we see all these things and all these people who get super heated when their biases are challenged, and when you see these people who are, insulting others, like, oh, you have this conclusion, you're a piece of crap because you came to this conclusion through this really long, complex, it's really difficult to kind of just sit there and think, okay, you're wrong. This is why you're wrong. How do I tell you that you're wrong without everything exploding? And so I think that's where we are right now. We are in this kind of I don't know the good word for it, but this kind of like cesspool of people on the verge of imploding because of all of these symptoms of a lack of scientific literacy, which is coming to a conclusion after having all the evidence in front of you rather than having a conclusion and finding evidence to support it.
I saw a lot of hands up. Who was next?
I think Polaris World.
Yeah. Polar? Or was it... Sorry.
Oh, well, Vera, were you before me, or...?
I'm not sure, actually.
I saw Polaris World, and then I saw Vera.
So I think Vivian said something that was super valuable, and I think that we've kind of I think gone past. But when she brings up individuals who just see things that are wrong in the world and want a simple conclusion, this is so demonstratable by so many things of so many ways that we consume media in today's society, right? Like, there's a reason why when Glenn Beck is talking to his viewers and they're talking about, you are the patriot, you will save America from this, and this, it's super empowering, right? So I don't necessarily think it's completely scientific illiteracy, which I still think is super valuable, and I'll get into this in my next point. But I think this whole aspect of empowering individuals to feel if they have some form of control against this corrupt world is extremely not just necessarily valuable, but it literally has a physical effect, right? So we can look at people who consume conspiracies. When we look, for example, at COVID-19 conspiracy consumers, they don't have increased stress. It's weird to think about, but they don't. I mean, from the data that I've seen.
Because the world makes sense to them now, yeah.
And it kind of demonstrates how valuable certain forms of conspiracy can be. And this whole aspect of you finally get it. You can do something about it. I think when Vivian talked about this aspect of the world is wrong and people and authorities aren't doing anything, this is really valuable. Secondly, I think scientific literacy is a really important point because academia is as widespread as it's ever been. You can get online, you can read a bunch of studies, but you may not actually know what any of those studies actually mean, right? So academia isn't behind a paywall, but the ability to understand it is getting heavily expensive. Yeah. That's a really big deal. But I think Vivian really hit it on the nail. Even if we see groups of people on both political sides who are both scientifically illiterate, we can see them evolve in different ways, right? I don't necessarily think there's something inherently different about it, a right-winger who ends up engaging in conspiracy and becoming a QAnoner than, for example, other left-wingers who are just as illiterate and scientifically illiterate and have these sort of thoughts. I just necessarily think of it in the sense of, well, this group got to them first. I think this is a really widespread issue rather than these specific individuals.
I think it makes it very, very difficult to address as well. People often talk about conspiracy theories and say things like, oh, well, there's this grain of truth to them. And it's true, that grain of truth is often that, the world is kind of, or something is kind of wrong in a specific way. And that makes things, a lot harder to challenge because it's not necessarily that they're wrong about, the sort of, I don't want to say, the core belief. I want to say... that they're wrong about the underlying wrong that is being committed, with QAnon, pedophiles in elite positions. This is not a thing that is a crazy fucking conspiracy theory, right? Epstein should have proved that for fucking everybody. But it's the lens of analysis they use to work out why this is happening that makes them fundamentally different from left-wing folk. Left-wing folk would say that power corrupts and it's sort of a force multiplier, money is a force multiplier in terms of the amount of harm that people are able to do, whereas the QAnoners are like, well, you know, it's all been controlled by this evil cabal since the beginning of time. You know, it's like they're very different like reasons why something is happening, but ultimately like they're not really describing. I mean, they are describing things that aren't happening, but I think you know what I mean, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. One of the words that I've been waiting to hear here is epistemology. For the audience, that's usually couched as the study of knowledge, like how we know things. But it's a little broader than that. You'd probably say it's the study of what we would say cognitive success. So, like, how do you arrive at what do you consider a successful outcome in terms of thinking, and how do you get there? Really, a lot of these issues around, say, scientific literacy or the legal process, or how we evaluate media, have to come down with specific. People are approaching them, whether they know it or not, with specific theory, epistemic approaches. Let's say, like they have internalized some way of knowing things. They have some sort of goals for, their thinking, that they use to decide whether a particular line of thinking is successful or not. And I think a lot of the disagreements about this, particularly once we get into groups like QAnon or other sort of conspiracy things, is that people are not necessarily operating with the same assumptions about what cognitive success even looks like. It doesn't necessarily look like, to them, having all the facts lined up and their I's dotted and their T's crossed. There are other ends that they're looking to address more very often. And I think it's the differing ideas about epistemology that maybe kind of get to the heart of a lot of these issues around both conspiracy and believing in science and things like that.
Coco?
I wanted to say what I think is kind of interesting was so, like I said earlier, what we're seeing is more like a symptom of a larger issue. Symptoms being like the evidence, finding evidence based on conclusion, and then the pride and ego that I mentioned as well. The social responsibility of being right all the time, which you see quite a bit as well as trauma. And I think, Vera, what you're saying is kind of interesting when it comes to like things like cognitive. What did you call it? Cognitive.
Cognitive success is
cognitive success.
The term that's used in epistemology.
What I find really interesting is when we come to other people who are engaging in conspiracy theories, engaging in conclusion-based evidence. I find it to be a lot more about finding comfort, finding security, right? So it's not so much like the rest of us were, kind of adventurers. You want to have, you want to know what is the unknown. We do not fear it, or we're fighting to, for something new. While a lot of people who I imagine we would see as people who want to keep the status quo are fighting for comfort, or fighting for that privilege that they either don't have or want to have, or already do have and are afraid of losing. So it's like the whole cognitive, I'm sorry, I can't remember, cognitive
success.
Success. It's like that's something so foreign and vague and so completely out of the picture of the individual who is engaging in these conspiracies or in what I would consider comfort-based exploration. What can I find? What can I look for that will provide me comfort? And you see that, I think Polaris said, correct me if I'm wrong, people have less stress levels when they engage in conspiracy theories. And that's kind of like, isn't that kind of like one of the things? These people are stressed out by the world around them that they do not understand. They cannot understand, because if they understand it, you kind of have a Cthulhu moment, right? Your brain just melts. People have panic attacks, etc., etc. So they have to find conclusions. They have to find evidence that brings them comfort, that brings them a sense of domestic tranquility. Because if they don't, then what? Like I said earlier, what does that say about them? What does that say about?
So
things
it's
that they
almost
believe
like
in?
once they've tasted that false knowledge, that
Yes.
false security that they've gotten, you're not going to be able to peel them away with something that doesn't contain that. Your
It's a drug.
solution, your solution to their problem, you got to give them methadone somehow. Like, oh God, I hate using these metaphors. And for anybody who has addiction issues, I'm sorry, I shouldn't use your struggles as a metaphor. But like, if we give them something that, you know, palliates them in the same way that has a little bit of that palliative in it, or even maybe a little bit of truth. Like if we, I mean, like, I don't know though. I don't know. Like, can we find truth? Can we find truth with a capital
Well,
D?
it's
T?
planting
Maybe not,
the seed, isn't it? It's planting the seed. You want to plant the seed of doubt and have an environment where it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to like not be correct all the time, or to have a moment of distress.
Great, great. So we only need to deconstruct toxic masculinity, and then we'll be fine. Mr. Geek, we haven't heard from you yet.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I remember. Cool. Yeah, I wanted to go back to the beginning. Sorry, I missed a little bit because I was eating and everything. But yeah, when you talked about like at the beginning, the whole beginning before the show, of like when you talk to someone who lives like who says arguments so far out of reality. Yeah, I call that alternate reality when you come to like these alternative facts and stuff like that. And I think like, yeah, like Proudco said before, it's like comfort food, basically. Like you have like experts who spend their life studying something, to still not get an answer at the end of the day. So you can literally create this alternative reality where you know everything. You don't need any kind of expertise. You can dismiss every science, every kind of data, and you can still get with basically like build some kind of expertise to this.
Can I talk on this for a moment?
There's probably three things that, to the appeal of conspiracy media and the whole conspiracy scene, there is definitely an element of it which is comforting in terms of like validating a person's pre-existing beliefs. So, for example, the ancient aliens narrative reassures people about the narratives that they have about Western civilization and its superiority.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the pyramids aren't so much and things like that are not so much a threat to the accomplishments of the West if, you know, they were done by aliens instead of those actual cultures.
Yeah, so that's the conclusion-based evidence that they're trying to find. They have a conclusion that their society and their race is superior. Therefore, this society and this race cannot have engaged in superior or equivalent behavior. There must have been a reason. And that brings back to domestic tranquility. That brings you back to comfort. It's like, yes, I'm still superior.
Mr. Geek, were you
comfort, which is
no.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, I don't think he was done. Sorry, guy.
Oh no.
That's okay. I just wanted to go back to what Vadim said about zeitgeist and to some extent creationism. There's something called the God of the Gaps, which is basically like you're going to say, well, this thing in evolution doesn't have answer. And you're going to leave it to that and jump in. The Bible says, and this is something that happens in zeitgeist as well, where they're going to point out some facts about the pyramids, and they're going to jump to aliens and basically like go on aliens. And I think like if we want to fight against conspiracies and stuff like that, I think educating people when it comes to logic, reasoning, like recognizing bias, fallacies and stuff like that is really needed.
I would like to. I have to make this really clear. That when I talked about that study about the COVID individuals who consumed some form of COVID conspiracy, I think that was recent, right? And the COVID conspiracies are recent as well. When we look at, I guess you could say, more long-term forms of what we consider conspiracy or alternative forms of thoughts, we need to be very careful when we talk about things like stress, right? So a perfect example of this would be like people who take the black pill, right? So incels initially with any form of conspiracy, you may get that initial feeling of like relief because you finally figured it out, right? You finally figured out the truth that no one else is seeing, and maybe you can do something about that, right? But what we see with a lot of groups is that when we take this to the extreme, right? So every day they're seeing the same issues over and over again, right? So for people who take the black pill, if you guys don't know, it's like the logical, not the logical extreme, but the extreme of inceldom, I guess, or whatever. That like your whole life is gonna be shit because you don't necessarily fit like a woman or like society's standards of beauty and attractiveness, and therefore you won't be able to get a job, you won't be able to do this, you won't be able to do that, and at that point your life is worthless, right? That causes a lot of pain and physical stress, a lot of mental stress on individuals as well. But we can also see it with like people who end up consuming a lot of like Nick Fuentes, America First, like shit like that, right? So these people will see all these issues going on with America, and they realize that they're not large enough to actually fix these things, right? So initially they may feel these like spurts of relief, but if they get farther and farther, a lot of times they realize that like there's actually nothing that they can do, and that's what makes these kinds of conspiracies really harmful. Is like even though they may feel initial forms of like relief, in the long term or at the extremes of these beliefs, they can be extremely harmful. And I have to say that, yeah.
Bringing up Nick Fuentes, like you bring up like Nick Fuentes is just neo-Nazi stuff in general, right? Like the Dylan Roof guy, like the big reason as to why, or even just not even just Dylan Roof, but a ton of other like mass killers and people like that. Like a lot of it is an attempt to just straight up start the race war, right? Because Dylan Roof was under the impression that like black people were just gonna
why do they want to start that? That's the important.
Because they're starting with the basic assumption that
no,
they are
like
superior
essentially, I was
race,
saying
right?
it's essentially
that's what
like
they're
black
starting.
belt. I'm sorry.
It's the reinforcement of the hierarchy, putting people back in their place. The domestic tranquility, the comfortable. They've had a taste of white supremacy for centuries. Any challenge to that is, cause for execution, as we have seen. We have evidence, centuries of evidence to back that one up with lynchings and police brutality and just history in general. Also, I want to let everyone know that I have to leave. So it's been great talking to everybody. I gotta go. I have another appointment. So this is a great conversation. I really enjoyed meeting some of the new faces, I believe. So I'll tell Irene I said goodbye as well. Bye.
Bye.
So I think some of that does play into it, but like people don't come to these conclusions just through like a desire to like keep the black man down, right? Like there's something, there's a lot more going on there than just simply black person me no like.
Oh,
right.
That's why I brought up.
Yeah,
that's why
hold
I was
on.
coming off of Polar's black pill thing, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the combination of like you believe in these hierarchies, you believe in these forces, you believe in these big things, and you want to do something about it, and you see your life as worthless, or you at least see your life as worth sacrificing for this cause, right? That's why you would go out to do
like,
the mass shooting. That's why.
I'll never be able to get ahead in this system. It's completely fucked. Here's why it's fucked, and it's fucked because of the black dudes, right?
And I'm gonna take as many of these people out as possible, whatever group that I don't like, that sort of thing.
If I could extend this also a little bit, just to, for example, some of the recent protests against like police brutality, right, in America. I think that there's like a pretty widespread assumption among people on the left that when you have that there's like this baked in assumption that people who are like Blue Lives Matter are inherently racist. And I talked about this with someone on stream recently, right? I think that there's like a half truth in there, right? Because I don't think that a lot of the people who support that necessarily go to like protests like Proud Boys, or maybe Proud Boys are overtly racist, but I don't think that most people who are Blue Lives Matter are necessarily like, oh yeah, I just really want the police to fucking murder black people. But what I would probably guess, right, is that usually they start with the assumption that the police can do no wrong. And that, they look at the police with the baseline assumption that they are the good people who uphold morals in society, right? And so if you begin with that assumption, then you have to logically backtrack to, or you have to like logically construct a reality where they are justified, where these good people are justified in killing disproportionately people of color, right? And so the police can do no wrong. Well, it's not the police's fault, so, and then they just kind of like walk themselves into that conclusion, right? Beginning with the assumption that police are good.
I think you can take it one step back though, right? So like we have things like just world fallacy that specifically refer to like, well, if things like the way that it works is like people are in the situations that they are because of their own control, right? So in the case that you bring up with like how certain Blue Lives Matter individuals may view the police, a lot of times it's their personal interactions with the police that can then justify their beliefs about other individuals. And I think it's really interesting because it's a lot has a lot to do with perception, right? So like a black individual may have had a terrible experience with the police, and that may shape the way they view the police in the future, right? Until that they can necessarily apply these beliefs to general societal conditions. Some individuals don't do this, but like when it comes to people who are just regular, who literally have that just care about the things that are most important to them, that can be something that's like really pushed upon society. And I think that it demonstrates with like just world fallacy, the world is just, people are in the positions that they are, and that can be validated by one's individual experiences. And then from that point, we can go directly to what you were talking about. And I'd also like to say that like, as I mentioned earlier, I don't think like these people had something like had this external issue with them before. I think it is like as a result of like societal conditions. And I think that's really important because I feel sometimes when we talk about people who end up being involved in conspiracies and end up engaging in these communities, I think we tend to look at these people without some sort of empathy to a certain extent, where empathy may be needed to fully understand why they got to that position and how we can effectively understand how to get them out and understand why they're in these positions.
I just wanted to make one brief comment, which possibly could have been mentioned. There were a couple of times where I had to leave, and then I wanted to pose a question to everyone. So the commentary is just very quickly that, the sort of feeling of what was it? Of just not happiness. Oh my God, I'm sorry. Just really, my brain is not functioning well today.
The thing Vera brought up?
The feeling of comfort that people get from conspiracy theories, that's definitely an element to it. But I also want to just introduce the basic idea, if it hasn't already been, that sometimes a feeling of superiority, I think, is also mixed in there. That there is sometimes a sense of pride that people have in having feeling as though that they know something that the rest of the world doesn't, or that they have some sort of privileged information that very few people have. I think that's like part of like whole like weird psychology. But then
I'd also say that contributes to a feeling of safety as well. Like if you have the inside track, and you're clued in as to what's really happening.
Absolutely, I definitely agree. But then this is a kind of a completely different thing that I'm introducing here. I wanted to just introduce a question to everyone, which is, how does everyone feel about actually censoring some of these things from parts of the internet? And I mean, like for instance, QAnon, I believe, is going to be cracked down on, or is being cracked down on both Twitter and Facebook. And just like, is that an inherently good thing? And just kind of like, is there, because I do question kind of like, with all these things, even though that I personally like that, I do question kind of like, where is the line that should be established when different companies are taking it upon themselves to do these sorts of things?
I mean, that really gets into a question, though, of like, who are you asking? Because, like, I mean, we always talk about this as a parlor game, but most of us don't really have an effect on what any of the platforms, are going to do. So on one hand, we do have to remember that this is capitalist problem, not our problem, and not to let like right-wingers make this our problem in a debate. Because guess what? I'm not Mark Zuckerberg. Like it's but yeah, I mean, like the question of like, you know, are we happy if, like, you know, Alex Jones loses his YouTube channel? Is that a good thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it driving it further underground? What's the but I get what you're asking.
So Facebook reports seeing a 50% reduction in traffic to QAnon web pages since it started like cracking down on those. And we often talk on the left about like things like the alt-right pipeline and so on, right? And these front-facing sort of like popular social media websites like Facebook and Twitter are that sort of like mouth to the pipeline, right? Like you're not gonna stop like dedicated fucking adherents who know exactly what they're doing on the internet from continuing to dig themselves deeper, but you will stop other people from being like caught up into it, right? So do you think that it's important to continue efforts to deplatform dangerous conspiracy theories, cults, white power, whatever? It's not going to make it go away. With QAnon specifically, there's a lot of people who are just absolutely gagging for new Q drops for quite a while because QMAP went down after the head developer of QMAP, which is the website that distributes Q drops, right? They're like posted on 8chan. 8kun, but because like a lot of people who are into QAnon are like old boomers and shit, like they'll go onto the message boards and they'll see all the fucking shit that's on there and they'll be like, whoa, this is not a place for me, right? We're talking about the website that used to host like fucking child porn, right? So like it's not a place that a lot of these people feel comfortable. It's not got a particularly intuitive interface. It's not like super front facing. Not a lot of their friends can tell them how they're supposed to use it, right?
They don't even know which field to put Sage in, just to bring
exactly.
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot more difficult for them to come across this information. And I do think the efforts to continuously deplatform are important. Obviously, as an anarchist, I have some reservations about like corporate and state power in these efforts, but ultimately we have to understand that we live in a system where those are the structures of power that exist, right? And either we can completely ignore them and say, oh, we can never use them because we oppose their existence, or we just accept the fucking reality that we live in, right? Try and change it, of course, but use the tools that we have available in order to turn that structure of power against things that are harmful to society. Yeah. Because it's going to be used either way. We can't like not use it, right? Like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, they'll crack down on somebody, right, who's like harmful to them. So if we create enough of an uproar that they think, oh shit, our bottom line might be affected, then we can at least direct that towards people that we think are harmful rather than having it directed towards us.
What is the limit though? Because like for instance, I'm just gonna be real quick. For instance, you know, a lot of people believe very harmful misinformation about trans issues, and you know, and those, like, I mean, you can draw parallels to conspiracy theories with that stuff, but you know, it's not strictly that all of the time. And it would be great if we could just kind of wipe that shit away. But there's just like a certain point where it like I just fear, you know, I hate a lot of disinformation that's out there. Yet at the same time, I'm still kind of struggling with like, what is the line of what is acceptable to kind of crack down on, and either censor, deplatform, or you know, in some cases, I think YouTube will like put certain like warnings on do they, or I think for
YouTube and Twitter have started both doing that. Yeah.
What? I think for certain
YouTube and
videos,
Twitter have both started doing that. YouTube with like videos on coronavirus, and Twitter have started doing it with like Trump's tweets, right? Like,
YouTube also does
saying
it for
this-
videos of like QAnon now.
Yeah, which is good.
I think there's kind of two issues that need to be talked about. It's in one respect, this is an issue that's a little bit analogous to fossil fuels. Like, people talk a lot about, well, what do we need to promote alternative energy sources compared to fossil fuels? And I think the actual answer there is to end fossil fuel subsidies. And similarly, with a lot of the content we're talking about here, it's not, the battleground is not so much stamping this content out. It's ending the sort of subsidy that it gets from the platforms. This is particularly true with, say, Facebook and a lot of this material. A Daily Caller gets a massive, effective subsidy from Facebook in terms of being effectively exempted from a lot of the rules about artificial promotion and that kind of thing. So it's consistently at the top or near the top of Facebook news sources. And that's by doing things they shouldn't be allowed to do. But, Ben Shapiro is buddies with Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, not only that, but you've also got kind of the Steven Crowder effect, where like they're a big cash cow for the platform, and that in and of itself makes them more reticent to pull them back, to do anything that could be seen as silencing them, let alone deplatforming. Yeah, it's a real thing that like that these people who go beyond these lines that the platforms are comfortable with are also making money off of that, and therefore there's a little bit of an incentive of the company to sort of treat certain accounts differently depending on how much real income they're bringing into the site, which is kind of like a that's your negotiation point, that's your inflection point as a content creator. It's like, what money are you bringing your platform?
So the other thing is that, what was I going to say? Something about QAnon. I think QAnon at this point has outgrown the sort of meme or fandom status. It's
100%.
effectively,
It's institutional now.
effectively a religious it's a religious movement, and it's actively now competing with evangelical churches for membership. Like, there are actual QAnon home church movements that are taking membership away from evangelical churches.
Right. Well, wait, taking away. So wait, you're saying churches around QAnon, right? So there is like literally a religious aspect, and the religious aspect being Christianity, not worshiping cues or anything, esoteric like that, right?
Well, I mean, it's not just fundamentalist Christianity. There's a lot of that, for sure. That's like the main drive, but there's also a shitload of really weird new age shit going on as well. About like Ashtar Sharan and so on, right? Like, people are getting drawn into this from all kinds of different angles.
Actually, Vivian, what did you just say? Ashton Sharar?
Ashtar Sharan. Okay. This is one of the areas that I'm not like super up on. But Ashtar Sharan is like a like this extraterrestrial thing that like a bunch of people claim to have like this psychic connection with. It's like it's the whole Star Children thing and everything. It's very it's very bizarre shit. So there's like lots of really weird new agey religious stuff that goes into not goes into QAnon, but there's like a section of QAnon that is very into that sort of like new agey weird ufology and so on. So it's not all like fundamentalist Christianity, although that does seem to be like a large part of the base.
I think the best way to understand it as a syncretistic Christian religion. So, like, I don't know, Gnosticism or something like that. It's not.
It's not replacing.
Christians would call Orthodox.
Right.
But it is absolutely replacing. Like, churches are starting to lose membership to QAnon specific churches where they, go over the new Q drops and as part of their service essentially.
Is anyone else getting just a little side? Is anyone else feeling like this is just like kind of just like funny, like on a cosmic level?
Oh yeah, it's hilarious. Yeah.
Hilarious. Like, this is like they're getting this from 4chan posts. Are we like?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of really hilarious ironies in the whole like QAnon movement. The whole idea that they're like incredibly concerned about child trafficking and they're getting their information from like literally the child porn board, right? Like, there are a lot of like hilarious kind of bits and pieces, and you can sit there and go through QAnon shit all day and go, man, this is fucking insane. How hilarious is this? But like underneath that, there's like the very, I mean, there's all the attempted terror attacks, people just going batshit and doing dangerous stuff, attempting to assassinate people. Like that lady tried to assassinate Joe Biden with a car full of knives, like in America as well, like a car full of knives. Like, why didn't she get
what is this, Britain?
And also,
no, Vivian, we don't know the story.
Do you need to assassinate one person? Like,
wait,
do you really need a car full? Like, probably 3 would be like max. But anyway,
was she Dio Brando? What's she doing? Like, really? When you first said that, I thought you meant like she had the knife strapped to the car. She was driving it, trying to drive it.
I see. She was then. I'm googling it now. She was an exotic fire dancer. That's probably why she owned all those knives.
That's fair.
Could be.
But yeah. So there's all that stuff where you're just like, this is fucking batshit and it's hilarious. But underneath that, like, I don't know, every time I try and talk about it with people, we always get into the really crazy stuff because it's a bit of a freak show, right? Like, people are like, whoa, they really believe that, or like, but underneath that, there's all this what I called once like the incredibly banal abuse of the cult relationship, which is how it like divides people from their families, how it like genuinely affects people's mental health because they become obsessed over this shit and separated and isolated from everybody else, how it like drives away their friends and family and just sticks them in a really, really awful fucking position. A lot of people like liken that kind of cult mindset as being like in an abusive relationship with the cult, right? That it's a very similar kind of experience. Like, it does them a lot of harm, and yet they just can't fucking stay away from it.
I actually wanted to ask Polar a quick question, which is earlier you mentioned that you said that there was data that suggests that people who believe conspiracy theories are less what was it, anxiety ridden than people who don't. Are you sure that you're not talking about religious belief? Because I've heard studies that, okay, why don't you just speak to that?
Yeah. So I had to clarify. I said there was a case where I think it was in Poland, right? There was a study from Poland that specific. I don't remember if it was Poland or not. I can link it actually. But basically, it was looking at people who engage in coronavirus conspiracy, right, and compared their stress levels relative to individuals who didn't. And the reason why I brought that up is it's different from other conspiracies. Is one, this is a relatively newish conspiracy, but it ties into a couple of past ones. So you may not see a lot of like the long-term really harmful effects initially. So that's why I was bringing that up. Is like the initial relief that can come from a conspiracy can be mind-opening, awakening to say that you finally know the truth. But from that point on, it can get really difficult trying to push that truth out there, and that's where it can get really bad.
It gets really dark and dangerous to people's mental health, right? That's why we were talking about the black pilling and shit earlier. Yeah.
Can I ask a question, since we're going about like breaking up with families and stuff like that? Like, if I don't know if anyone here had to like cut anyone off, because of like conspiracy or even like far means fringe beliefs or something like that. Yeah, but I keep hearing a lot of stories about. There's an entire subreddit made for that. In fact, but I wanted to say, but I just want to say that, like, I mean, what's the end game of this sort of thing, right? Like, are we just gonna have like a bunch of just like older loner type people just like in their homes, just like dealing with this sort of thing, like couples like in this sort of sense? Are people just like, because it seems like more and more people are just cutting off others?
So I don't think there's like a kind of intended fucking purpose here, right? There's no cult leader who's driving the group or the movement towards a particular end. In fact, like QAnon at its core, as I said much earlier, is sort of essentially just a continuation of the blood libel repackaged for like the modern age. So I think that there are there are several ways that this can ultimately kind of like end up and start petering out again, and all of them are pretty fucking horrible.
Yeah.
But there's no like particular mind behind it. I'm really fucking doomer when it comes to QAnon at the moment, honestly.
Like if let's say somebody believes QAnon, like is falling in all this stuff, right? And you've known them for a while, they fall into all of it or whatever. Like, is there any way they can like come back from it? Like, if somebody legitimately starts believing the QAnon thing, I don't know if I could ever respect them. Like again, I don't know if I ever could do that. Like personally,
I'm not sure if I'd be that harsh.
Literally though. I don't know if I ever could just be like, I really don't understand how you can be like this.
In the right material circumstances, very easily. Like,
yeah,
people often think of themselves as like, or they see these people and they're like, oh, I could never fucking be like.
I know I'm not immune to propaganda. I've believed dumb shit. I probably believe dumb shit right now. Okay, dumb shit. But like, I'm talking about to the point where it's like, you don't trust anything. You're willing to make like if something's right in front of your face and you say no, right? I'm sorry. What are you gonna say?
So belief isn't something that you choose, right? That's something that I often say is like belief isn't something you choose, it's something that happens to you. You are convinced, right? Like when you say you're convinced of something, that's like it's a verb, it's something that's been done to you, right?
Yeah, passive
you have
voice.
been convinced by the information that's been presented to you. And I don't think that anybody's fucking immune from this shit. It's just that they, you know, you said yourself there's probably some bullshit propaganda that you believe, but it just happens to be not bullshit propaganda that leads you to the kind of conclusions that they've brought themselves to.
I am American.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But people,
one thing that I think is really terrifying
too. Go on.
I was going to just say that one thing that I think is really terrifying is that I've read that there is a higher tendency when a particular in America, when a particular God, again, these simple words are not coming to me today because my brain is not working well. When a particular political group is in power, there tends to be more conspiracy theories coming from the group that is out of power. And so it's really terrifying to think what will happen, you know, to the QAnon phenomenon if Trump, I mean, hopefully he will not win. But yeah, if he loses. And then the other thing that I was going to say is that I'm actually surprised.
It's scarier if he wins.
During the Bush administration, a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of the 9/11 stuff was originally propagated, not entirely, but it was very much not. It was very much more a left-wing thing in the beginning of it, like its inception, than it eventually became, and I'm sort of surprised with Trump being as horrible as he is that we've seen as few conspiracy. I mean, some people think of like Russiagate as a conspiracy theory, but I don't think that there have been that many. There's certainly nothing akin to 9/11 that's occurred on the left that I know of.
The stuff with Epstein sometimes can get there with Trump. Like they post pictures of Epstein and Trump sometimes. They can, but Epstein feels like a nonpartisan thing. It seems like
in all fairness,
definitely it affects everybody. But yeah, just I don't know. I just wanted to say that I think that if Trump is out of power, that we're just going to see this magnified to an even more absurd degree than we see now.
Right. And Vivian said that nobody's really driving the ship right now. But what worries me is that I know there are people harnessing the ship, by which I mean grifters, people that are in QAnon that are making money off of these, you know, they're seeing, and I don't know, maybe some of them believe it.
Nobody seems to be making a huge amount of money off of it, right? Like,
yeah,
there's
so
a
nobody's
few
got
people that
control.
make
Nobody can
amounts, like,
steer.
making a living, but yeah,
Yeah.
nobody's making like a huge, enormous amount. I can talk about that in a bit, but I just want to like push back on something that Vadim said about
Oh,
like
okay. Go ahead.
the real worry of like Trump losing being like something that's going to be really, really fucking bad. I would say that him winning is something that is like worse, right? Because if he wins, as the GOP embrace QAnon, this then QAnon becomes the fucking administration, you know. That and when we look at like similar kinds of movements that have cropped up, I see a lot of similarities between this and like the fucking Rwandan genocide, right? With like OANN, like One American News, like constantly pumping out the like the pedophile cabal and all this shit. Q literally has been publishing over the last sort of 3-4 years, like a list of 3 years, a list of names, right? Essentially, of people who are involved in the deep state. They know who their enemies are. And if they're in power, they're going to try and fucking do something about it. And I think it really could end up being on the scale of like democide, you know? Whereas like if Trump doesn't come to power, I think that Trump losing the election could absolutely be a trigger for more violent events, but it's sort of more scattered, more stochastic, right? And it culminates in some kind of like large attack like the Oklahoma City bombing. You guys all know the OKC bombing, right? Like Timothy McVeigh took a truck full of fertilizer to an FBI building and like blew it up, and some 400 people died.
A ton of people still think he wasn't a Nazi for some reason.
Yeah, but I think I think that will ultimately be like either it will wind down that way, right? Because something really fucking horrific will happen, like the OKC bombing, and people will be like, well, holy shit, this is obviously really fucking dangerous, right? And they'll sort of and they'll splinter off into a bunch of different fucking groups, and ultimately it will carry on for fucking ages, but they won't have the same level of prominence as they do now. Possible resurgences in the future, or they gain power and they actually enact their political goals, right? And that's way more fucking terrifying to me. Sorry, that's why I said I'm like really fucking doomer on this shit right now. Like those are the
I want like this. I want like some exchange on like C-SPAN or something to occur, where like a politician, like a senator or a representative, someone just comes up and starts talking about QAnon, and the person's just like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I don't know. Just essentially, just like, what are you saying here? What do you mean? You know, like these sorts of things. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like.
Well, it's gonna happen. I mean,
it's going to happen because we do have some representatives who more than likely, I mean, not many of them, but there are going to be some representatives that are likely going to be voted in that are totally,
Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example. Yeah. But we've got some 80 candidates, I think. The last time I checked, there's around 80 candidates who are coming up for election in November, either former or current congressional candidates.
And you mean people that have passed the primary, people that are going to be in the election,
not
or no?
people who've passed the primary, no. Just candidates who've received a nomination.
Okay, so people who've received the nomination, so past the primary. That's what that means. That's what that means. Is in American politics, being past the primary means you've got the party nomination.
There's about 3 that people are saying that are likely to possibly get into office in November. One of them is Marjorie Taylor Greene. I can't remember who the other 2 are, but
4chan posts. 4chan posts, guys.
I mean,
it's crazy.
They're not 4chan folks, are they? They're not your typical.
I mean, posts. Like the posts started this. Like the 4chan posts. Yeah. Like.
I mean, but I don't think the 4chan posts started this. Like 4chan posts kind of helped blow this up, along with some of the moderators on 4chan, and there was like a YouTuber who like picked some of this up as well. They deliberately decided to like try and push it a little, but like I said earlier, it's just a repackaging of the blood libel, and it's absorbed like so much of American conspiracy over like the last 100 years, you know, that ultimately it's no longer just a fucking 4chan thing. I think one of my friends described it as this as a Katamari ball, right? I often describe it as like the Blob, right, from that old sci-fi movie where it just fucking absorbs everything in around it. So the kind of people you see running for office now, they're not like 4chan trolls, right? They're like suburban moms, you know, who've been sucked into this shit. They don't know what a fucking Aikun is, right?
Yeah. I mean, Vivian, like, it's the kind of thing where, like, I'd be worried that, like, even if somebody does have control of this movement, like, politically in an, you know, electoral sense, I don't think once it's activated, once they've got the signal that, like, okay, it's time to go after the deep state, it's time to go after the pedophiles.
Yeah, I think
like, I don't think there's any calling them back, even if their leaders, even if, you know, their Donald Trump figure or whatever says, hey, stop it, don't actually kill these people. Like, I don't want to be, there's no stopping it, because they've already set this up that these people are fucking monsters and deserve to be killed, and there's no way to really
Y'all
dial that down now.
Have y'all seen some of the responses to like Trump supporters being told that Trump came out and said that that the coronavirus was actually dangerous and that he lied from the beginning? Have you seen some of the responses? Because there have been like interviewers who have gone around and talked to people who are Trump supporters who previously had believed him, and they were just like, oh, we don't care. We still believe that it's a hoax, right? We're still gonna go with the story.
Oh.
So yeah.
Oh
No,
my god.
They're totally off the wall, right? But that's kind of symptomatic of, I think, the thing that you're talking about, right? Is that, like, even after the person who kind of set off the ball, in this case, that, like, coronavirus was a hoax set up by the Democratic Party or whatever nebulous figure, even after he comes out and says, oh, actually, I completely lied my ass off, people are still running with it. They do not care about whether or not he was lying. Like, everyone knows that he was lying. It's just that they choose not to care about it. And I could definitely, so you talking about this, I could see a very similar thing with like QAnon.
Yeah.
So like 20 years from now.
Back to the measures of cognitive success again. Like, from these people's point of view, their cognitive strategy is successful. It gets them the place they want to be.
Yeah, and the problem is that you have like Republican senators and Republican activists. I posted a speech the other day from Charlie Kirk, for example, on my Twitter, where he was very much alluding to and dog whistling essentially to the QAnon crowd with some of the things that he was saying, right? Like, whether he meant to or not, I can't honestly say, but it does seem to me to be somewhat of a strategy of like GOP officials at this point to sort of like publicly, a lot of them are sort of like, oh, I don't really know much about QAnon, but like actually in their rhetoric, like embracing some of those same sort of like conspiracy theories in very vague manners. And I think that that's going to become a lot stronger. But I think the thing, and I think I said in my Twitter post that this is like essentially just it's the language of genocide, right? It's constant dog whistling to the blood libel, and it's really fucking speedy. We have to continuously look out for it. Sorry?
When you say blood libel, are you talking about like the protocols of the Elders of Zion? Is it connected to that, or?
I mean, the protocols of the Elders of Zion pretty much describes the core of the QAnon conspiracy, right? It's like,
right, yeah. What exactly is blood libel? Because I'm just maybe you explained it earlier. But,
So the protocol of the Elders of Zion is like one piece of propaganda that describes the blood libel, but the blood libel is actually sort of a myth that goes right back. It might go back to the Roman period, but the earliest that I can think of is sort of around 1100. Which the idea is essentially that Jews are stealing kids and using them in some sort of satanic ritual, killing them, mutilating them, abusing them, right? So it's this long-ass fucking conspiracy theory that's been around for absolute centuries that just keeps getting revived and reinvented. So that's
the reason it's called blood libel is that the sort of accusation is that the children are killed in order to use their blood to make matzah. And the modern version of that is the adrenochrome harvesting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And not just that, a very popular conspiracy theory is that Coca-Cola or Pepsi uses baby parts in their formula. I've heard that from conspiracy theorists. So yeah, that gets just repackaged and recycled in all sorts of different ways.
Isn't there actually like baby foreskins in some of the fucking anti-aging creams? I read that somewhere.
Yeah,
but I read so much
yeah.
conspiracy shit sometimes.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
double check it to see.
There's
I'm
stem
not
cells
sure if
apparently.
it's actually
Somehow they harvest stem cells from the remnants of circumcisions. Maybe I
Yeah.
heard in Korea. That not that part's important, but like that they that it's like expensive beauty creams are being made out of this stuff. So there is like a truth, sort of,
Yeah, right.
tangentially, not really
Like
the
the
same
best-
thing, but you know,
The best
similar.
thing to do when people tell you stuff like this, the
Riley
best thing to
looks
do
horrified right
if
now.
someone ever tells you about this stuff is to just ask them, where'd you find this out? You know, don't just be like, what are you, stupid? Like the way I've been saying to all of you. But that's the only way. That's only because I'm talking to all of y'all. If someone really would tell me this in real life, I would just be like, oh really? Where'd you find that out? I remember my friend brought up like some 9/11 truth stuff. He's a person that is never engaged in politics at all or whatever. He just browses social media and shit like that. And I knew exactly where the fuck he got the info, but I just asked him. I'm like, hey, where'd you find this out? And he's like, man, you know where I found it out. And I'm like, I actually don't, because you know I deleted my Facebook like 2 years ago. And he's like, I got it. He's like, I got it from Facebook. And I'm like, okay, you got this from Facebook. You know, and I just repeated it, like, you got this information from Facebook. And he just kind of was just like, okay, I see, I understand, or whatever. You know, it's not typically that easy because I know this guy for like half of my life, you know, and so he like respects me as a person or whatever. But like, it's you gotta ask him where they get it from. If it's like Facebook or like social media or some bullshit, everyone's like, I just saw like this picture, this video somewhere. I'm like, okay, cool, got it, all right.
I think you do have to provide people with like a fundamental sort of like a foundation for critical thought, right? In order to like immunize them against this kind of bullshit to a certain extent. But I don't think that anybody is completely immune at all.
Is anybody else kind of concerned that, like, you know, we've been talking about like the right wing and their sort of lack of critical thinking, their lack of like applying the scientific method to things. What about the missing knowledge that a lot of people on the left, like, so we explain these things, we go into blood libel, we just say blood libel, we don't explain what that is. A lot of people out there probably don't know that. I'm glad that we got an explanation on this, because I've probably mentioned it before without, you know, really explaining what it is. I feel like there's a lot of left normies out there that are going to be so surprised when they find out what QAnon is really about, when they start to get into those frazzle drip hashtags, like the things that they, and Vivian and I have both, you know, covered this stuff. We're trying to kind of spread the word of Q as as a vaccine. Yeah. In order to kind of prepare people for the discussions that they're going to have, you know, with their friends.
I think we need to be prepared not just for the discussions, but for the eventuality that this is like actually a much greater threat than most people realize at the moment. I think people dismiss QAnon for so fucking long as just like, you know, a few silly conspiracy theorists, and really, especially during the riots in COVID, like the explosion in the amount of people that like believe this shit, right? It's so huge, and the potential for real sort of like catastrophic I mean, even like loss of life, essentially, but catastrophic like abuse, like when they start setting up compounds and stuff. You talked about the QAnon churches; they're raising money to like have homes for like abused children. You know, there's like real world congregations of these people now, and there's such a huge fucking potential for abuse, for organized mass violence and so on. And it's terrifying, honestly. But I think more people need to be talking and learning and reading about it.
I think what Irene just talked about just hit me. When you were talking about like the lefty normie, like not necessarily understanding what what QAnon's actually about, and then you guys talking about like where it actually stems out of, going back almost 1,000 years, right? It literally just hit me. This kind of demonstrates like what really is this, and what are the real life like actual consequences of these things. And I think this kind of demonstrates like what this has actually gotten to. Like when I heard that, it literally was like a click in my brain. It's like, holy shit, like these people aren't a joke anymore. Like
It's pogroms, it's murders, it's terror attacks, it's fucking genocide.
Yep.
You know, that's ultimately where this shit has led every time it's reared its fucking ugly head. And like, yeah, that's why I'm so fucking doomer about it. I want somebody else who is like, you know, an expert in fucking cult shit to like come to me and go, Viv, you're overreacting here. But so far, like that's just not happened, right? Everybody I've interacted with is like, yeah, it's kind of really scary.
I will say though, to pull us back from the precipice of doomerism, that we're noticing this. We're becoming aware of this. Like we don't represent most of the left. We don't represent most of anybody. We're just some streamers on Twitch, but we are a little bit ahead of this. They haven't started. I mean, they did the shit back in the 80s, but like, you know, they have it shit like, you know, we're not at the witch trials, I guess. Yeah, it is what I'm saying. We're not at the programs. We can see it coming, and there's not a hell of a lot that we can do as individuals to stop it. But I think that the mass like recognition of what's going on before it gets, you know, the snowball really gets going, before the avalanche starts, like might,
I mean, I think we're
show us
already
to be
on our
slightly
fucking way,
ahead. Right? I don't know. Do you think there were people, you know, back in the day who were like, oh yeah, we're gonna have witch trials in a few years for sure. They're gonna be like, oh, that poor old like lady that uses herbs out, you know, at the court at the outskirts of town. Yeah, she's gonna get murked. You know, I don't know. I think that we are a little bit ahead of it.
Alarm for ages. 2 years ago, there was like an article, I think, was it in the New York Times or the Washington Post? I forget, but they essentially just like put up the timeline of like Hitler and the Holocaust and like kind of where we are sort of with respect to like QAnon and all that sort of stuff. And there are people who've been out there like talking about this shit, trying to raise the alarm for ages. It's just getting listened to, you know. And I'm not really 100% sure like how we do that, other than just talking about it as much as fucking possible.
Yeah,
I think mocking it is also. I think also mocking it is one strategy that I mean it should be taken seriously, absolutely, but I think that's always part of an effective strategy in terms of getting people to recognize how batshit their beliefs are. I mean, I've heard from a lot of people over the years who sort of came across creationist cat videos, which I used to talk a lot about religion. I also talked more about conspiracy theories back then as well. Did a lot on 9/11 and various videos on Holocaust denialism and stuff. And I've had a lot of people who have written me and said like, hey, I found your videos at a certain time and they really pissed me off at first, but they made me think, and then I went back and I laughed at it, and it really was part of the process of making me analyze the batshit things that I believe. So I'm not saying that alone, no one thing alone is going to be an effective strategy
I
against.
think we have to be careful with mockery as well.
What's that?
I think we have to be careful with mockery as well. Mockery does tend to like make people dig in and not want to like listen. I think mockery is an effective strategy for creating entertaining videos that raise awareness. But I don't think it's I don't think it's like a really, really effective strategy at getting people to like challenge their beliefs unless they're just sort of vaguely on the precipice of it.
Well, I'm just saying that I think that it's one tool of many that we need to use. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And obviously,
do you mind if I could talk on this? Because I think about this a lot.
Yeah, Riley.
Yeah. So I mean,
Riley,
like,
then Mr. Geek.
Okay. No, I mean, just to the extent that like, because I'm always thinking about this, like, for example, if I ever debate someone, right? Like, do I want to go in and humiliate them, or do I want to go in and persuade them, right? I think that there's usually like, there has to be some consideration of whether or not I think that they are like fundamentally a good person, and B, acting in good faith. And there's no perfect way to be able to determine that, right? But like generally speaking, if I'm going into a conversation with someone, I genuinely think that I could move them on a particular subject, I will try to treat them amicably, right? But like if I know I'm going into a conversation with someone where it's pretty clear at the onset that there's just no way that I'm going to be able to persuade them, like I'm talking to a literal like all-in neo-Nazi, like it's like there's no way I'm going to be able to actually convince this person, not realistically. And so basically, like for me, I'm thinking about like, all right, well, why am I talking to this person? Because it's basically like just talking to a brick wall as far as persuading them goes, right? And so my mental process at that point is like, okay, well, now that persuading them is sort of out of the picture, well, I can at least persuade the audience by humiliating them in front of everyone, right? And that's sort of the way that I think about it, right? Because like if someone is going to talk to me amicably and like be nice and chill and actually like will approach the conversation with an open mind, then like I'm gonna treat them great, you know, like and that's the way that I try to do, because I try to be like a genuinely, you know, decent person to other good people. But like if it's someone who like is pretty shitty, and like especially someone who I think the audience would expect me to be shitty towards just by virtue of the fact that they're a shitty person, then yeah, I'll probably like I'll probably try to humiliate them a little bit. But that's usually how I go about like making that differentiation or that determination.
Riley, like I really think that like the model for this, like that how to approach this is kind of like in the older ContraPoint videos about like the alt-right. Like there was something in those that both, you know, made fun of them a little bit, pointed out what was wrong with, you know, the way they were thinking, but also I guess they could feel seen in that. They could feel understood. Like there was like a certain like not wanting, you know, there was a certain like gentleness that she had in there, or a certain understanding that she had for the people who'd gotten sucked into this, that I think actually from what I've heard from a lot of people who got like, you know, turned around, then like that was what did it, was that it wasn't just somebody, you know, purely roasting them. So like I think there's a way to do both, maybe. Mr. Geek?
Natalie has said, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Geek, you want to go?
Oh, did you want to? Okay, sorry.
It's going to be short anyway. I have to go. I'm sorry. I'm needed.
Oh yeah, no, totally understandable. You want to give a little commercial for yourself, and we'll shout you out?
Really. Go follow everyone on this panel. Riley, Grace, Roshang, Hey, it's Vadim, Vivian Wolf. All these people are super based. Yeah, go follow them. And yeah, thank you for having me. And
yeah, thanks for being here.
Have a good night, Scott.
Have a good night, friend.
I was going to say that Natalie is somebody that spent a lot of, and by her own admission, has spent a lot of places in like alt-right, you know, like breeding grounds like 4chan and things like that. So she kind of knows how to talk their language in a lot of ways, and like understands them probably on a level that I think most, you know, popular YouTubers out there just wouldn't know.
True.
There's got to be some empathy along with the mocking. Like, you can, if you're just completely dismissive, then I don't know, you're not going to be able to persuade people. You have to show that you understand where they're coming from and what they're actually saying.
I mean, I think it's kind of like a spectrum, right? Like if you look at some of the original, like the H-bomb videos, like way back in the day, like making fun of like Thunderfoot, right? Because that's throwback. I mean, like you know, that's basically what it was, right? Like it was a large departure from what a lot of like, I guess the 2016 anti-skeptic or the anti-SJWs on YouTube were doing, right? Because a lot of people were trying to approach it in the way that like, oh, like Riley J. Dennis. I mean, like a lot of people are familiar with her work, right? And I'm not saying anything necessarily negative about her.
I'm so sorry. I literally thought when I first saw you, I literally thought, wait, is it?
Oh, fuck.
No. Okay, cool.
Listen, I would love to meet her. The Rileys unite, right? But no, so I mean, like, like that was, I think, a really good faith attempt on her part, you know, back then. And I think that she's taken a lot of crap unnecessarily. But I mean, I think that there's just like a difference in kind of rhetoric presentation, right? Because like back when people were starting to respond to like anti-SJWs, it was done from a more of like super level-headed and understanding and almost like collegiate sort of perspective or presentation. I'm not exactly sure like how to phrase it in the way that like the far right would characterize SJWs back in the day, right? But then you have someone like H-bomb come out and basically just throw all that out the window and be like, I'm gonna just laugh at this person because they're just ridiculous, right? And I think that there is like definitely like a degree that you want to be, you know, like a human being, someone who is sympathetic, someone who's not just like a completely like non-emotional fucking sociopath or whatever, right? Like you do want to be able to express emotion. But I think that like there's I'm inclined to agree with your state. I think this was just like a long way of saying I think I'm inclined to agree that like it's good to just strike a balance with variations.
I would also say that it seems like you can go, Vivian.
Oh, thank you. I think a lot of people are very focused on like trying to persuade people out of a position. And I often talk about this in regards to like de-radicalization from like white nationalism or the far right or what have you, right? I do believe that like persuading people out of their position is like a valuable thing to be doing. But I think that the primary concern, once something has taken root to the degree that this has, is harm reduction. So in my sort of like primary kind of consideration for like how to deal with this movement, I would say that the spreading awareness is not necessarily about like trying to persuade people away from their position, but it's literally to try and get like people who aren't already down the hole to recognize just how fucking dangerous this is, and to maybe agree and like as a society that we ought to try and work out what can actually fucking be done, you know, because as individuals on the internet we can make small differences, and people at home can like speak to their gran and give her like a way out, address some of the material conditions that might result in her spending all fucking day sitting at her computer waiting for the next Q drop. But like ultimately, in order to stop this before it gets to one of those horrible fucking conclusions that I predicted earlier, and I'm kind of skeptical about us being able to do that, but we have to come together as a society and reject it, right? Like just fucking entirely. Yeah, and I don't know if we're going to be able to do that, but Polar, sorry, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think the difference that people like ContraPoints and Natalie did compared to some of the past people who tried addressing these issues is I think a lot of the people who tried it in the past tried extending sympathy rather than necessarily understanding and having more of an empathetic take, whereas I think Natalie and a lot of other like current like leftist figures have taken a much better route towards actually understanding and putting themselves in the position rather than like feeling bad or acting as if like these people just don't know what they're talking about, which can be somewhat condescending. And I think we can see that by like the amount of people that have credited people like Natalie in ContraPoints and the great work that she's done to help de-radicalize a lot of these people. But I also do agree with what Vivian is talking about. Sometimes things have gotten to a certain point where like you may not be able to de-radicalize everyone to the point where it can actually reduce the amount of harm that you want. But like it's man, this is taking me down some doomer roads. Okay, I think this conversation is super valuable, but like it can be somewhat scary. But I think fear in and of itself can kind of be a good indicator of like how large of an issue this has become and how we should. Yeah.
I was gonna say this is depending on like we're talking broadly about conspiratorial thinking and people that are like, you know, working with alternative facts here and stuff. I think that an important distinction to make is also like the kind of person that you're trying to like, you know, attempt to talk to or de-radicalize or something. Like for example, if I were to talk to, you know, a white supremacist or a Nazi, you know, being like, you know, as a black man or whatever, you know, here there's an aspect of like, well, you know, like how safe am I from this sort of thing? Am I putting myself in a bad position? Am I putting myself in a position where I could potentially release myself to like danger and all that stuff? How much of my opinion will they take? You know, because I've spoken to Nazis on like Discord for a while, and most of the time they just don't know I'm black. But if they do know that I'm black, things change immensely. Conversations either like don't become conversations or they become very interesting conversations to where like there's just like I'm asked a bunch of weird questions about like beliefs that apparently I hold and like things that I apparently have done or not have done, just all kinds of weird shit and all that stuff, you know. And like I feel like even the identity of the person that's coming to it, if they're like a person of like a marginalized community, whether or not like they're the person like you're talking to is even taught to even believe what you're saying or believe anything that what you're trying to say, you know.
I think also part of okay, what? I was going to say that I think also a part of successfully getting people to abandon these beliefs is not just having empathy for those who hold these beliefs, but having both empathy and kind of demonstrating the real world harm that the beliefs themselves create. And I mean, like for instance, I made a video that Riley had a small role in that was discussing what's her name?
Ariel Scarcella.
She's a turf. Ariel Scarcella. But really, I mean, even though that I was discussing Ariel Scarcella, I was kind of approaching it as sort of like a loose blueprint for the beliefs of TERFs in general. And I mean, I'd like to think, because of the fact that I was very mindful with that video to use as much. Oh, and as a matter of fact, Vivian helped me with that video. I should mention that. She was really helpful with it. But one thing that I think is effective about that video is the fact that I use, it's not just me. Because of the fact that I don't have that lived experience, I used a lot of quotes from both trans and non-binary people. I mean, I guess non-binary fits under the trans umbrella. But anyway, I'd like to think that by kind of showing their point of view, that some people who hold those beliefs, that it's like they say, the more that you are around either trans or LGBT people, the more LGBTQ friendly you become. So I guess I'm just saying that that's another part of it, that you don't just have to have empathy for the people who hold the beliefs, but show them, hey, like these are the effects of what you believe, and these are what the people, in terms of certain incorrect beliefs, these are what the people that you are demonizing are actually like. They're real human beings. They're they're just like you and I. They have feelings, blah blah blah. They're not kind of the
I mean,
the individuals that you make them out to be. I'm not saying that that's always going to be an effective strategy. All of these things, no one thing is going to work every time, but I think that that's just an element that helps as well.
you can do that with like Antifa and BLM and stuff, but how the fuck do you do that with somebody like George Soros or like the Rothschilds or whatever, right? Like, it's kind of hard to.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you make some sort of like empathetic portrait of Holocaust victims or something like that, and he was part. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I understand.
Yeah. But just that it's
not. I mean, what I've said with all of the things that I've suggested, I don't think any one thing is always going to remedy a belief. And there's some people, like we said, that just can't be. You just can't reach. Some people just either are not reachable at a certain point in their life, or they never will be. But
and a question I want to ask is, what should be done with those people that that can't be reached, right?
We humiliate them, damn it.
Re-education camps.
Okay, just propose, and I want to make sure that nobody's answer is going to include the word extermination. Please, just as long as you can do that, right?
Okay.
But go take it.
Quarantine. You have to quarantine them from the rest of the population so that their bullshit can't spread. You have to hide in the deepest, darkest fucking recesses of the internet and relegate them to just fucking ranting on Aitken, so that they're not, that's the only way, so they're not infecting other people.
Yeah, the salient thing here, or the important thing here, is that we are far, far past the point where de-radicalization can be a primary strategy. The big concern here is actually building a broad public consensus about what QAnon actually is, and motivated by that shared understanding, it becomes possible to counter-organize. Without building that shared understanding is extremely critical to really doing anything else.
And that's why the current wave of reporting is so fucking dangerous. We've had so many people going on CNN or MSNBC who are claiming to be experts who've literally just become aware of it in the last month or so, and coming out with really stupid fucking takes like QAnon is essentially an anti-government cult. It drives me fucking insane when this shit happens, and those people absolutely need to be called out and dragged off their fucking pedestals as well. And we need to promote people who, and I'm not talking about myself here because there are people who are way more knowledgeable than me, but people who actually fucking dedicate their lives to researching this shit and have been talking about it for years, rather than just somebody who happens to be in the media elite in-group who writes up a stupid fucking report without understanding what they're talking about.
Yeah, because that kind of thing can actually be more harmful than helpful. And Vera, I love that you think that my streams talking about QAnon are not, like, I've been accused of like going for like salacious, kind of clickbaity stuff, like right before, like, why are you concentrating on this stuff? You should be talking about theory or, something else. But like, I love that there's like some use in actually like educating people what QAnon is really just about, because there's a lot of ignorance of that. And I think you're right that we do need to build that narrative the way that we have about Scientology. Most people don't go into Scientology because they know that, like, there's the Xenu stuff and it's ridiculous and whatever, right? We've got that narrative built. We could do the same, and that's not going to keep everybody out of it. That's not going to, like, eliminate QAnon as a thing, but at least it will be like some kind of a vaccine against it if you sort of get, like, if you get it explained to you before you're into that ridiculous mindset that can actually, take this and be like, okay, I accept this answer, right? Who is next?
I was gonna say that before you guys go, I was gonna say that I have to like check out, okay, for the time being. It was really great, speaking with all of you. I got to speak to some people I thought that I would never actually talk to. I'm like, well, I see you people on like YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been cool. I've had a wonderful discussion. Signatural27 at twitch.tv. Okay, follow me. Please give me money. I need money. I'm gonna die. Okay, please give me money.
See you, Sick.
See you.
Nice meeting you, man.
Always a pleasure, Sick Friendly.
I was gonna say, Irene, you literally, like, getting to them first is like why sometimes like forms of like deplatforming is really important. Curbing growth, right? Exposing people to these ideas before they hear them from other places. And I think that's a really important aspect that, like, it kind of ties into what I was saying earlier about, like, a lot of these people are just really malleable. Could go literally either direction on the political spectrum or any form of, like, a lot of forms of conspiracies. It just seems like a lot of these groups have gotten really effective at getting to these people and latching onto them really effectively. So I think there's a lot of value in, like, talking about this and, like, addressing this and exposing why these things are wrong before like the QAnoners get to them first.
Right.
Well, I think
so.
Ultimately, it just comes down to improving. Sorry.
So to my way of thinking, like, the kind of scenario we most urgently have to avoid right now is the situation where it gets to a point where, say, Burger King decides they want to appeal to the QAnon market.
Yeah.
Actually, so I mean, I kind of want to piggyback off of what Polar was saying, because that's very similar to my mindset, right? Like, I'm fundamentally, and I think that it's important to kind of recognize this, right? Like, if we are, or I'll speak for myself, and people can adopt this statement if they want to, right? I fundamentally maintain that my political beliefs are derived from things that I think are empirically validatable about the world, right? I fundamentally maintain the beliefs that I have because I think that they are empirically validatable, right? And because of that, I am able to come to an inference that people who have beliefs, especially those which are extremely different from mine, are either empirically that can be invalidated by modern academic consensus, right? Which is a fancy way of saying we know that we know that we're right and we know that they're wrong, right? So it's about a battle of making sure that we're able to get as many reasonable people, kind of what Polar was saying, right? Like, there are a lot of people who are kind of in the middle, apolitical, don't really know a lot about politics, right? Who can really go either way on the political spectrum, and it's just a matter of who gets to them first. So I'm always concerned with maximizing our ability to be able to reach people and reach them first, and minimalizing the ability for people with contrary views to reach people and making sure that they reach them after we have already reached them. And that might sound kind of like scary and whatnot, right? But the reason I feel justified in saying that is because, like, I'm very confident that we are advocating for, like, very, very easily defensible positions, right? Like, in like a intersectional views of society versus, like, race realist views of society, right? Like, one is clearly right, one is clearly wrong. We want to make sure that we are able to get that message to people first, and that people, like, the ones who have that contrary idea get to people after we have already been able to sort of, like, get them the right kinds of arguments, right? So to me, it's always kind of like min-maxing our comparative strength, because I do think that, like, de-radicalizing people is an admirable thing to do, but in the long run, it's a lot harder to do, and I'd rather focus on people who aren't nearly as politicized at this point.
I would also say, Riley, when we talk about, like, you brought up a great example, like this intersectional lens versus like this race realist lens. It isn't necessarily only the fact that we may have the strongest arguments, or the fact that we're right. It's the effects that these views have on society, and what, like, how bad and the harm that these kinds of ideas will actually push onto people. And I think that's something that's really important. Like, I'd much rather live in an intersectional society where, like, I'm not harassed on the basis of my race, and we know that these things will cause less harm, cause more utility, than like having a race for the society. I think it's a really important aspect as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the vaccine gonna look like? Because that's kind of what we're talking about, getting to them first, giving them something that's gonna make that QAnon pill harder to swallow.
We make propaganda, baby.
I can't look like a vaccine, that's one thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely avoid that word, probably. Yeah.
I mean,
not fans of
doing
that.
what we're doing right now, right? I mean, this is the best way, I think, to do it. To accomplish that, just continuously call it out, make videos debunking it, showing people why it's wrong, and putting it in as persuasive a way rhetorically as we can. Like, as long as we're able to get to people like here. All right, so I'm gonna analogize to something that we're taught in law school, right? So generally speaking, most people will base what they end up thinking throughout the entirety of a trial, for the most part, based off of what's said in an opening statement. All right. Usually, and that's why opening statements are incredibly important, because like they have the effect of literally dictating the entire way that a person or a group of people will perceive or think about a particular subject matter or a group of subjects, right? And like here, I think that we have a really similar kind of thing, right? Where we have this subject, which a lot of people at this point might not know about, but if we're able to get to them first and frame it in such a way that is able to better lead them to conclusions that it's wrong and should be condemned, as compared to someone like someone gets to them first that frames it in a much more pro QAnon kind of lens, right? Like that can have a massive effect on whether or not those people end up rejecting those beliefs or not down the road, right? So just being able to like give them the arguments first and most convincingly is a really, at least from where I'm sort of sitting, I feel like that's probably one of the best ways to kind of mitigate that harm in the long term.
I agree. There's another, I mean, I sort of mentioned this earlier, but this fear sort of comes to me because, you know, I mean, in the case that, I do agree it's much better for Trump to lose, but I think naturally on YouTube, or this is just a theory of mine because this is the way that it's played out thus far, when a particular you know, political group, if either the Democrats or Republicans are in power, there is more of the opposite voice ends up having more strength on YouTube. And I'm not saying that the right currently isn't very strong on YouTube. I guess what I'm saying is that I fear that there could be another rightward swing in the next 4 years on YouTube if that comes to pass, and that the left in general won't have as much of a voice as it currently does, and therefore those attitudes will have, or you know, beliefs will have more of a platform. I mean, to some degree YouTube cracks down on these things, but not, you know, we talked about how they don't crack down on people who make a big profit. And I don't know, maybe I'm just babbling at this point, but I don't know. You know what? I should probably get going because the reason why I'm having such a hard time articulating myself as well as usual is because I did not take my sleep medication last night. I ran out of it, and I have to go to the pharmacy in order to get that prescription filled. So I'm gonna get going. If I was at all rambly or just not as together as usual, I apologize. I'm not having a good brain day, to put it mildly. But you guys are all awesome, and to anyone who wants to check me out, Creationist Cat on YouTube, Hey It's Vadim on Twitter. I enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed listening, but yeah, I just a little tapped out.
Yeah, Vadim, big mood. I totally understand that, and you gotta like, I'm in the same way. I'm at the end of my prescription for ADHD meds too, so I feel that. Everybody check out Vadim. You're like one of my favorite creators. You can check out the old Creationist Cat videos. You can check out the newer stuff, which I think is more built around you, right, Vadim?
Yeah. It's going to be, the channel is going to be rebranded to Hey It's Vadim pretty soon. And the last video I did is actually a Hey It's Vadim video. I call the videos that I do on my own Hey It's Vadim videos because, that is going to be the name of the channel in the future. I do want to say something real quickly before I go, which is just something to throw out there. It's just something to, just to remind us of. I don't think that in some ways, the threats, there actually are negative repercussions of some of these things. I just wanted to kind of like remind everyone that there are conspiracy theories on the left, or maybe not so much conspiracy theories, but commonly held pseudoscientific beliefs. Like a big one is a belief that GMOs are harmful. And is something like that is actually more harmful than a lot of people realize, because like for instance, in Africa, there are a lot of European countries that have sway there, and GMOs are there's more of kind of a hysteria around them in Europe than in America for some reason.
Yeah, that's gonna have to be a discussion for another day. But yeah, thank you so much, Vadim. It's really good to have you as always, and we'll be looking forward to the new rebranding of the channel. And
I'm sorry if I was just rambling there, but I just...
Oh no, it's cool. I just wanted to like...
It's important to recognize that there are destructive beliefs that the left has as well, that we should kind of check ourselves and kind of eliminate as many of those as possible. Is what I'm saying.
Be skeptical of everything.
Okay, so
be skeptical of everything, especially if there's a corporation making money from it. So totally, talk to you later, Vadim.
Bye.
Later.
And definitely go check out Vadim.
Oh my god, if you're missing Vadim,
several of his videos.
So folks, if you're Twitch people, you might not notice this, but we got some like YouTube luminaries here with us today. And Creationist Cat is one of those, and Riley is the other. Me and Vivian have YouTube channels, but it's not really our main thing, so we don't get down like that. But these people make content that's a little bit more, it has a longer life, let's say, than the streams that we put out here on Twitch, and it's definitely worth taking a look at. So highly recommended stuff.
Scripted videos are fucking hard work as well. Holy.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, like Vadim said earlier, he was like, I don't know, what's the word, like consulting with me on the Scarcella video, and like that was like every day for about 2 or 3 weeks. I was like talking to him for like a couple of hours.
Oh my god.
So much fucking time and work and effort into making sure that, especially as it was a video about like trans issues, that like trans voices and perspectives were included in it as well.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, I really appreciate Vadim and the amount of work that he puts into his videos to make sure that he's producing something that is not only kind of, funny and taking the piss as well, but like dealing with those issues responsibly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, okay,
Polar, what are you saying?
I like dude.
I was gonna say, sadly, I also have to head out as well.
Yeah, we are kind of wrapping up. Or is it 4 already? Yeah, it is actually 4 o'clock. We'll go ahead and wrap it up now and right into Dylan maybe, or actually Riley, are you gonna be still streaming after this?
Am I gonna be chat? Hold on, let me check with my chat real quick. Yeah, let me check in with my chat. How are they all feeling? Do we want to keep going? We can keep going for. Actually, no, sure, we can keep going.
I'll raid you.
Yeah, we can keep going for a bit. Sure, why not?
Okay,
we'll
cool.
chat.
Imagine if you asked your chat and they just said, no, fuck off, we're bored of you. As if they were...
That's the worst thing to hear. Like, please end stream now. God, I've seen some people where like that's a reward that you can redeem is end stream now. And I have only been asked by one of my community members ever to end stream now, and it was somebody that wasn't particularly happy with the way that my this direction that my my politics in my stream was going. So that was a little interesting. But yeah, we'll just go around the horn. Everybody give a commercial. And maybe kind of wrap it like let's give a take that's like kind of to wrap the issue up as much as you can, and then we'll raid out into Riley. You want to start us off?
Oh, damn. All right.
Sorry.
Hey, everyone. My name is Riley Grace Rochon again. I definitely not, I don't know. YouTube Luminary is definitely new for me. I have like 8K subs on YouTube. But anyway, yeah, I do political content. I try to tie in my experience, you know, learning the law, being a law student, being trans, all that good stuff. As far as my final take for this, yeah, misinformation is pretty scary right now. I think it's definitely something that's going to continue to be a big problem. It's probably going to continue to be one of the major problems as we go into the future, especially with like this election, QAnon, everything going forward. I like to think that we're able to help to some extent on here, but I mean, like, at the end of the day, this is, I mean, like, we should be doing this, and it does have some demonstrable help, but there probably does need to be, like, a larger kind of, like, systemic change. I don't know what that would be, because, I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's us versus, like, large corporate interests, especially, as far as, like, dissemination of inaccurate media. So I'm not saying that to be too doomer. I'm not sure if I want to be doomer, but, you know, I just want to be realistic about, like, what we can do to be able to help and to the extent that we're able to. All right, that's it. Oh, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and mods. Can we get a shout out for everybody as they go? Oh, I caught you in a drink, didn't I, McVivian? Sorry. Are you
that's okay.
able to?
Is it me then? Am I doing the thing?
Yeah, it's your turn. I'm just going by how you are on my screen, and then, yeah.
I am McVivian Wolf on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm a historian, anti-fascist, and extremist researcher, and I talk about like cults and fucking white power and all sorts of stuff, and quite often get drawn into like transport debates with Destiny and people. So that's also fun. You can, yeah, you're probably best off following me on Twitter. I'm currently lining up. I've been away for a little while because first I left because there was just a lot of stress, and then I had a bereavement. One of my close friends died, so I took a bit more time off than I meant to. But I'm bringing him back with a bunch of interviews with extremist researchers, former extremists, and cult members, and stuff. So I'm hoping that'll be something that people will be interested in. So if you follow me on my Twitter, you'll know when I start up those streams again. Thanks very much for your time. I guess if I had to say anything in conclusion, run now, run for your lives. The end of the world is nigh. No, I mean, ultimately I would say just fucking be kind to each other, and remember that framing of like, if you get somebody in your life who falls into one of these cults, be it white power, be it QAnon, be it like fucking anything, the most important thing is to provide them with a way out. The further isolated these people could become, the further they end up being in it. You have to treat it like an abusive relationship, and that doesn't mean you have to approve of the things they're saying or doing, but it does mean that they have to have some kind of way out. And I wouldn't say it's anybody's responsibility to do that. I wouldn't put that moral responsibility on you if you just can't deal with it. But if you want to help them, then that's probably the only surefire way that you can, apart from maybe helping them to change some of their material conditions as well. Don't let them sit in their room scrolling through Twitter all day. Maybe just like go out for drinks with them or something, get them talking about something normal, you know?
Yeah. Bradley, how is your name on Twitch spelled? We were just trying to give you a shout out and then...
Oh, I think it's at Riley Grace Rochon, or I think it's either Riley Grace Rochon or Riley G Rochon, one of the two.
Is it no spaces in that?
No spaces. Here, I'll double check for you.
Okay, we'll
yeah, it's Riley Grace Rochon, no space, all caps on the first word.
Yes, Elder Scrolls. Is that what you were playing last?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so Polar, you've been dying to... Sorry, I made you wait till... I should have got started with you. Oh, you're muted, Polar.
I always do this, I swear. I think the last thing that I kind of want to say about this is, I want everyone in chat and anyone who's watching, like, please remember we're all people. People are easily manipulated. People are malleable. Please never forget that when you engage with people like this. And I think there have been so many good examples of how like people are really easy to manipulate, and when we necessarily look at them in an empathetic view, we tend to do a lot better of a job. getting them out of these kinds of communities, and that's kind of how I wanted to end this. So it's Twitch. It's Twitch TV/Polar's World. I do political content. I've been doing a lot of new stuff. I've taken a break like the past couple of days, but I have a lot of big stuff coming, debates. I'm finally gonna actually have the ability to start posting to my YouTube channel. But I really do care about some of the things that I do on here, and like content is cool, but I do kind of want to start pushing things that matter a lot to me and the people that I care about. I'm in high school, so that's something as well. So remember that, okay? Hey, everyone on here was really cool. Riley, I really like your background, okay? I like the lighting; it's very awesome. Vivian, I learned so much from you in this conversation. It was really, really cool to hear your experience on it. Someone who's had and does a lot of research in this area. Vera, I thought your aspect about like what was it, like cognitive
success
was really interesting, and I'd just like to say thank you, Irene, for having me on here. I've had a great time. This has been one of the most interesting panels I've ever been on. It's just really cool. Yeah.
Always a pleasure, Polar.
Polar, always base takes. Always base takes. You're gonna find base takes from Polar, so I would highly suggest following them before they blow up, and then you can say that I knew them when, which like like Polar. I see like you're in high school. Like I didn't even know that. That's a lot to be dealing with along with streaming. But yeah, everybody go follow Polar. And Vera.
So I'm Vera. I appear on panels a lot and sometimes stream games. And I guess in terms of summing up my thoughts, I think the fact that people have different success conditions for like thinking and knowledge, as part of the environment that they're in, is important to understand. It's also important to understand that these things are very socially conditioned. Like de-radicalizing someone doesn't just mean like changing their mind in a debate. That means ultimately changing their whole social context and getting them out of that social context that they were in. That's not something that thanks for the follow. What was I saying? That's not something that you can do en masse. Like de-radicalization as a strategy does not scale. And again, I think the most important thing at this stage is to paint a picture. Thanks to the follow instant replay. Paint a picture of the actual situation that's simple and sticky and gives people an idea of what we're actually dealing with, and promulgate that, because that's the only way that you can build a consensus that will lead to effective counter-organizing. And that's really the immediate crisis. If we just let things go on now, I am absolutely not kidding about the potential for a Burger King QAnon meal or something like that. And once we get to that point, things are very bad.
Jeez. That is actually that actually scared. That has the impact on me that I think it has on you. Yeah, I mean, like for me, like I would just like to say, like, make this a call for people. If you're thinking about getting on Twitch, if you're thinking about getting on YouTube, if you're thinking about if something like this appeals to you, if you think you could make videos that are sticky, by which we mean that they're rememberable, they're you know what I mean? Somebody can watch a 20-minute video and retain a lot of the information and understand more about QAnon and spread that knowledge. Like, get into it. Now is the time to buy that webcam, buy that camera, whatever. We're gonna need more of us, because guess what? Like, I'm doing this content, but I'm feeling like there's a fucking there's like a target on me. And same thing with Mixed Vivian, and same thing that anybody who covers this, we are kind of like drawing fire every time that we cover this. If we have enough people doing it though, they can't put like, you know, cross things on all, they can't put lasers on all of us, is what I'm saying, right? So there needs to be more of you saying this, like, you know, well, sorry, Vivian. Yeah.
I put in chat earlier, like, one of the messages I got, like, literally while doing this panel, and I every time I speak in public about, like, Q and shit,
yeah,
I'll get something like this.
And if there's only a few of us saying it, if there's only a little bit of this going on, then they can do that. But if there's enough of us sharing this story, we can get like a critical mass to where they can actually push back on us meaningfully. And you know, that's gonna give us like more courage, you know, that are already doing it. That's gonna, you know, inspire more people to get involved. And this is an all hands on deck issue here, because putting back the truth together after the Trump, you know, administration, assuming that this is its last hurrah, which is a big assumption, right? I wouldn't assume that at all, right? But like, you know, even if it is, right, like it's going to take a long time to get back to a workable sense of a societal definition of truth, I guess. But yeah, we need you all for it. It's not just us. So if you're thinking about getting into the game, now is the time. We need your voice. All right, so we're gonna raid out into Riley. Let me go ahead and type that in. And chat, don't worry, I will be back later tonight. I'll be streaming some video games, but first, I'm gonna take care of some of my material needs, and that should be fun. So yeah, every week we're here at 4 o'clock. I say that as things might be changing. I have to look at my school schedule and see if that's still gonna be the same. Most likely it's gonna move to the same time on another day if it does move at all. But I'll try to keep it on Friday since we've been doing that so far. And yeah, thank you to all my guests. Thank you to everybody that's been here, and you know, and to our new creators out there, like whoever you are. You know, the Surfs inspired me, EJ inspired me, ContraPoints inspired me, and like I feel like we need more. We need more people getting into the game and just see what you can do. Because I didn't think I could do this. I thought all I could do was play Minecraft and talk about Tim Pool. But look at me now. I'm having a panel, and I think it was an okay panel, right? It's not too bad.
I enjoyed it.
You can do this too, chat. You can do this too. If you're thinking you can't, you're wrong. That's what I thought. So yeah, let's raid out, and I think I say the magic words now. Fly, my pretties.
All right. Well, I'm gonna leave the call and go back to my Discord. Y'all have a great night. All right.
You are rated. Yeah, you too, and enjoy the stream. And yeah, have. Thank you, everybody. This was a really cool. I wish I could have gone on for longer, but it just felt like, you know, the energy really wasn't there and stuff, and I've got some stuff to take care of. But like, this is an important discussion, and I really value all of your input on this. And you know, it's like like just like all of you, like it gives me nightmares.
Yeah, you want to queue in on stream? I'm fucking there, like anytime.
Absolutely, we should do that. Actually, Vivian, I wouldn't mind doing like a podcast with you or something like on that subject. That'd be at least as long as this is a thing. But yeah, I'm gonna get off the call now and go take care of some stuff. You all be well, and wait.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. All right, talk to y'all later. Bye.
All right, bye.
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 And now, I am in Pepper Stream.
Yes.
Oh my god. Yes. Best thing to come home to. This is like home. I like this.
It's there.
Okay. So I have learned that I can stomach panels if I'm playing ESO at the same time. That's the lesson. Because that way I don't get just like obscenely bored in the lapses of time that it takes to get around to a subject I want to talk about. Hold on, let me turn on another light. I gotta get a ring light or something that's not quite as oppressively bright as this. So I can still let some of the ambient light on the background. I'm always thinking about things like this, right? Like how to better improve the quality of my video and all that good stuff, right? But okay, so I'm probably not planning on streaming for too long. So why don't we go ahead? Does someone want to pull up the flashcards, or is anyone able to? Is anyone willing to? Oh. You're obviously like, you don't have to. It's more just me asking.
Where are these flashcards?
Oh, they're pinned in scripting and planning.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a website, and they should have like the password and the username to log in. It should be pretty easy for people. And hey, then we can learn some law, because that's all right. I'm about to make fun of it a little bit, but like it is good to learn about it, right? I like that we're able to use this medium to communicate it to other people. While people are finding that, how did people enjoy the panel?
I think it was pretty good. It was definitely. I can see why you would get bored sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not that it was anything bad, right? It's just that we had like, what was it, 9 people, who all essentially agreed with like different like nuanced opinions. I mean, like, fuck, I don't know how the right does it, like having so many fucking circle jerks all the time. Because that's basically like all they do is just like fucking jerk off each. Like that was the oh, I'm not sure if y'all saw it. I know that Vosh was covering it. Like the cancel con with, I think there was like Dennis Prager, Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, and there's one other person who I couldn't remember. But basically just like all of the intellectual dark web, big brain boyos, right? And it's literally, it was like laughably terrible. Because it's literally just them all sitting around like circle jerking each other off about like their super edgy ideas, when Ben Shapiro's was literally, and I'm trying to remember, I don't want to paraphrase him, I think that he said his edgiest opinion was like I don't think that men are women, right? Just as like a dig at trans people, and everyone's like, oh my god, and it's just like, okay, dude. Like they have to cultivate a very specific circumstance to make that funny, because otherwise it's just not. So yeah, it's insane. Yeah. I don't remember. So I came in like a little bit late. I saw the Ben Shapiro one, right? Like I was very busy earlier today. I was doing work and getting ready for the stream and all that. But I saw the Ben Shapiro take, or at least part of it. I didn't see the Prager or the Dennis Prager one. In fact, hold on. Does someone want to link it to me? We can just listen to it. We can have a grand old time if we want to. But I'm not sure if that's something we should do like today or tomorrow.
Okay, so which flashcards do you want to...
Oh, right. Sorry. I got distracted. So on the homepage, there should be a button that just says Study Now. You can just like click on that, and it'll have like so many for review, usually 10 new.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we just start there, and that should be good.
Okay. Nature of agency relationship. What is the scope of actual authority?
I was asked about this the other day. Actual authority encompasses everything that an agent is told directly, or everything that a agent could infer from what a principal tells them.
Let's see what it is. An agent has actual authority to take action designated or implied in the principal's manifestation to the agent.
Okay.
Incidental.
Oh, sorry, what?
And acts necessary or incidental to achieving the principal's objectives, as the agent reasonably understands the principal's manifestation objectives when the agent determines how to act. But that's a lot.
All right, I think I basically got it. Give me a 4. I don't know. There's probably some. Actually, no. Give me a 5. Give me a 5. I basically got it. I just put it into less words.
Okay. One.
The Prager
okay, so on not-for-profit organizations.
Okay.
Fiduciary duties. Is it the standard of review applied duty of care violation by courts high or low?
It's low. I learned this the other day from getting it completely fucking wrong.
It's quite low. Okay.
Yep. All right, chill.
So what would you say? Is that a 4 or 5?
That's a 5.
Okay. Okay. Legislation: McCoy/Rosenberg. Maryland legislative bill drafting. How do you use prohibitions or requirements in the drafted bill?
You can use may not, and shall, but you cannot use shall not.
Okay. See? Yeah, okay, that's correct.
Chill, give me a 5. Pog, I love it.
It didn't mention the shall not, but yeah.
Oh, that's actually in the tip, I think. If you were to like flip the card over again.
Con Law 2, Stern. Heightened security. What is the strict scrutiny standard?
Alright, so basically it's when you have a law which on its face... I mean, I don't think that this says it in the card, but it's when you have a law which on its face has a racial... has a race-specific language or premise. And essentially it's that in that kind of an instance, only laws which are narrowly tailored to a specific government interest can withstand strict scrutiny. I think that's the answer.
In order to meet strict scrutiny, the law must be narrowly tailored to a compelling government interest. Almost always results in the death of the law.
Yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, like it basically always results in the death of the law.
Korematsu versus United States 44 and affirmative action and exception.
Yep, give me 5.
Okay. Next. Business associations. Moon. Ah, okay, this is business law. When does an LLC's existence till?
Up until it has concluded its business as specified, usually in its founding agreement. Or until its dissolution.
See? Most LLC statutes provide that an LLC... Yeah, okay, you...
Got it perfectly. Damn right. You're goddamn right. I'm sorry. I'm so happy that I'm actually retaining some of what I learned. Because there's a lot,
You're just too good for these flashcards.
I'm too good for these flashcards.
Stiller? Charity and development of non-profit law in the United States. What does it mean that non-profits evolved in the wake of market failures? Ooh, that's economics. I like that.
Oh yeah. So basically, it means that if I remember the language of the flashcard specifically, that originally nonprofits evolved because like markets are very good at determining prices for essentially non-essential products, things like shoes or other things that you don't really need to live. But they're terrible for dealing with things like healthcare, or I think that the book says the military, or something like housing, right? Like things which a market would probably abuse, right?
Yeah. Markets aren't good at dealing with public goods.
Yeah. All right, I think that's basically the answer.
Yeah, where markets don't work for something like health from profit.
You're cutting in and out a lot.
Oh.
It wasn't until just then.
Yeah, it was like just now.
Okay.
All right, now you're a bit better. But yeah, what was the answer?
Where the market doesn't work for some healthcare, I guess profits may do better.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like I got a 5. All right, give me a 5 on that.
Next.
Yep.
Business association. What is an owner?
An owner is someone who has... I'm trying to remember the specific definition. It's someone who has rights to be able to convey, trade, or destroy property. I think those are the main ones, but there are probably some that I'm missing. It's like use, trade, and destroy, I believe.
Owner, one who has the right to possess and convey something.
You cut out again. What was that?
Oh. One who has the right to possess, use, and convey.
Possess, use, or convey?
Yes.
Okay, then... Okay, I basically got it. I guess destroy is kind of implied, so yeah, give me a 5.
I swear I'll destroy every one of these blasted...
Legislation, McCoy/Rosenberg. Again, the Maryland legislative bill drafting. What is the short title of a bill?
It's like 4 points. It explains what a bill does. It doesn't use flowery language. It's not like morally prescriptive. Damn it. This is one of those questions where it's like, it's a totality of things, but I can't remember specifically. So, all right, I'm just going to take the L. Just tell me.
Okay. Let's see. Bullet-sized summary of bill. Not constitutionally relevant. No right or wrong short title. Should give reader general idea of subject.
Okay, I got some of it. Give me... I didn't get the majority of them. Give me like a 2.
Okay. Again, for profits. Tax exemption. How did federal tax exemptions originally regard charitable organizations?
originally they didn't charge any organizations which went to a public benefit. These usually were things like hospitals, homeless shelters, and the like.
Okay. Federal income tax exemptions made their debut in 1854 with the enactment of the first corporate income tax, which included an explicit exemption for corporations, companies, or associations organized and conducted solely for charitable, religious, or educational purposes, and stocks, shares, funds, or securities held by any fiduciary or trustee for charitable, religious, or educational.
Charitable, religious, or educational. Okay. Give me a 2 on that one. It had a line of language that I didn't address. Also, could you lower, or could you raise the sensitivity for you? Because you're cutting out a lot.
Okay.
And it's making it hard to get the questions.
Yeah, okay. Should be better now?
Okay. Yeah, you sound clear.
Okay, again, non-profits. What does it mean that non-profits form as a result of market value?
Oh, we just did that one. Yeah, so basically that they... Alright, just sometimes they repeat. I refer back to the earlier answer, but basically that markets are good for pricing out consumer goods, but not, like, necessary goods.
Let's see. Yeah, that's basically what you said. Yeah. Okay, so that's a 5. Again, business associations. Under the restatement, when is apparent authority terminated?
It's not when someone necessarily affirmatively says that they are no longer representing someone, but rather when a reasonable person would believe that they are no longer acting as someone else's agent.
Okay. Let's see. The termination of actual authority does not by itself end any apparent authority held by an agent. Apparent authority ends when it's no longer reasonable for the third party with whom an agent deals to believe that the agent continues to act with actual authority.
Damn right. Okay, give me a 5.
Okay. Con Law 2, Stearns. In order for a plaintiff to get a facially race-neutral law to receive strict scrutiny, can it be sufficient to show unequal administration of a facially neutral law in order to show discriminatory purpose? Oh, that was a long one.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Okay. In order for a plaintiff to get a facially race-neutral law to receive strict scrutiny, can it be sufficient to show unequal administration of a facially neutral law in order to show discriminatory Okay. Yes.
Yep, the answer is just yes. Yep, I remember this. Tripped me up the other day.
Okay, business associations again. What are the main characteristics of a partnership?
Fuck, there's like 5. There's fiduciary duties, there's an equal share of liabilities, there's equal ownership of the profits and equal share of the costs, equal say in administrative decisions. I think that's it, but I'm probably missing one, so just give it to me.
Liabilities. Each partner is jointly in.
You can just say like the first part. I think it's like bullets with explanations. You can just say what the bullets are.
Okay, so liabilities, control, returns, tax treatment, and fiduciary duties.
Damn it, I missed tax treatment. Fuck me. Alright, give me a 4. Got 4 out of 5, get a 4 out of 5 stars. That's how that works.
Okay. Not for profit again.
Okay.
What is the form requirement for corporations applying for non-profit status?
This one is so complicated. Basically, you have to fill out a form, a very specific form by a specific date with specific information. I can't remember it, but just read it to me. This is going to be like a hard one. I'm basically just going to need to hear it over and over until I memorize it.
A Article 501c3 organization meets the notice requirement by filing an application for recognition of exemption on IRS form 1023 within 27 months from the end of the month in which it was organized. Okay.
Great. All right, I'm just gonna have to hear that over and over again forever until eventually I just commit it to memory.
Yeah. So, yeah, what score would I assign?
Like a 0 or a 1, whatever the lowest number is.
This is just what the
Okay.
distillation initiator needs. I'm glad we could find one
Next,
with such good condition.
legislation again.
Mm-hmm.
What? Oh, I think we had this one. What are the mandatory elements of a bill? Did we have this one?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
You have. Dang it, I can't remember. There's the title, short title. There's the body. There's. Dang it, this is another one. I can't remember. Just give it to me.
Title.
Mm-hmm.
And that contains codification of the bill, summary of content and legal
You
effect.
can just give me like the first part of each bullet.
Okay, and then body of the bill. And
It's just
then
that.
it has.
Wait.
And then,
Or sorry,
it
go
has
on.
3 headings underneath it. One or more sections that will set out the legal effect, the text of the law affected by the bill, one or more special sections.
All right, I'll need to take another look at that. Yeah, give me like a 2. That was pretty pitiful. Sometimes I hit it out of the park. Sometimes I just do not.
Business associations. What functions do officers have in operation of a corporation?
They carry out the duties assigned, or the duties as desired by the board of directors.
I think that is alright. Yes, yeah. And manage day-to-day operations, yeah.
Yep, alright, give me a 5.
Okay, again, business associations. How is a limited partnership normally treated for tax purposes?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Okay. How is a limited partnership normally treated for tax purposes?
It's normally treated just as a through tax. Like the people are, in the absence of an agreement, taxed proportional to the amount that each respective party invested in the partnership.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, a limited partnership is a pass-through entity for tax purposes, and its partners are taxed on the profits from and may deduct the losses of the business. Profits, losses, and distributions may be allocated among the limited and general partners as provided by the partnership agreement. If no provision is made for allocations, they will typically be allocated on a percentage basis based on capital contributions, i.e. investments, in the limited partnership.
Damn right. Give me a 5.
Okay. Again, business association. What is the basic objective of corporations?
To make as much money for shareholders as possible. Insert quote from Milton Friedman.
Yeah, to create wealth for shareholders.
Yep. That's literally it. Like they don't even hide it. That's just the purpose of corporations.
Without causing irreversible damage.
I mean, as an economist, I cannot disagree.
Yeah. It literally is. I mean, like now, if you actually flip over the flashcard, there's like there's an alternative view compared to Friedman's.
Milton Friedman. Oh, that's.
Yeah, but I know that there are other contrary views, but like generally speaking, that's probably what most corporations are motivated by primarily.
Yeah, there's also the view by Coase, what the use or the utility of a firm is, but that's more general, the notion of a firm than corporation.
Right. Fun stuff. 10 out of 10.
Not-for-profit organizations. Can a board willfully ignore wrongdoing?
No, they cannot. What? Hold on. No, this is not real. This is not real.
Oh, fuck.
Wait, what?
Wait, what's not real? Fuck.
Is RBG dead? Hold on. I need people. Hey, everyone watching right now, go and fucking go verify right now. Right the fuck now. Right now, god damn it.
Oh.
Doing what?
Yep.
RBG is dead.
What?
Do you know what this means? Fuck. Oh my god. I'm freaking the fuck out. Fuck me. Fuck me.
Oh boy. God fucking damn it.
Fuck. Here's my retweet.
Where do people find this?
It was just
Reuters.
nothing. Hold on. Is this a reliable source?
Oh.
CNN
Yeah,
anchor? Fuck. That's too reliable.
Yeah, Jake Tapper's.
Yeah,
pretty...
so someone posted an NPR link in stream chat.
Fuck.
Well.
Okay.
Oh boy. No, this is terrible.
Okay, so now the House better fucking get their shit together. They better get their goddamn shit together and not allow Trump to be able to appoint another goddamn Supreme Court justice. Or we're fucked. We're fucked.
Yeah, because this will make the Supreme Court go 6-3.
Oh god. We're gonna have a 6-3 Supreme Court. Oh my god.
Can you still do that in a short time? Jesus.
Oh my god.
We're gonna try.
Yeah, no, they're certainly gonna try. They're gonna push it through fucking with now, if the Democrats actually get their shit together and don't allow anything to get through the House, fucking like the fucking like Republicans basically did with Barack Obama when he was finishing out his term and just like stonewalled any ability for people to be able to appoint Supreme Court justices for like 7 months, then I just hope to God that they actually like get their asses together and return this in kind, because holy shit, this matters. Do you all know how I cannot express how important this is. Literally, like Roe v. Wade, gone. Obergefell v. Hodges, gone. Or just to be clear, so pro-choice, gone. Gay marriage, gone. Fucking probably Bostock v. Clayton County. Trans rights, that shit's probably on the chopping block too at this point. I mean, like, that was only a majority opinion. Like, anything is possible at this point. Like, fuck. Yeah. I think it was only like a 6-3 opinion, right? So like it is close enough that all that they would have to do is Trump would have to appoint one person who's conservative, and they would need to get like one person to change their vote, and then they've got it, and then that's it, and trans rights gone again, as quick as they came. Yep. Dems are going to reach across the aisle. I swear to fucking God, if Dems reach across the aisle, I'm going to lose my absolute goddamn shit. My absolute goddamn shit. Oh my god.
Yeah. No comment.
Oh yeah. Now it's on Reuters 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I just saw it on Reuters. Yeah.
Fuck.
I just posted it in stream chat.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Also, side note, this is just sad because like she's such a good goddamn person. Right. Mm-hmm. The political ramifications of this aside, it's also just sad in general because she was a good person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, pancreatic. Oh.
Fuck. There's nothing good about this. There's nothing conceivably good about this. The terrible thing about all of this is that Republicans are goddamn like jumping for joy right now. Like they are like wrapping arms, like dancing and singing like, oh yay, a woman died of old age and cancer. Because that's something worth celebrating.
Yeah, I'm looking at where I usually go for sports ball, and there's like a lot of conservatives right now that are just literally jumping for joy.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, there are at least some that are going like, "Oh, I don't agree with her politically, but she was a tough ass American woman." That's like the nicest thing I only saw in this whole thread, because everything else is just, wow.
My most
Yeah.
fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new
Nice
president is
humans,
installed. Yeah.
Fucking hell, man.
Installed. Very interesting choice of words. Fuck me. I don't know what else I can say on this. This is terrible.
Yeah.
For so many reasons. Because now we're gonna have like Democrats. You better like listen. Democrats. You better fucking goddamn listen. All right. Get your heads together. Shit's real now. You under no circumstance let a single goddamn Supreme Court justice through the House until the election. All right? Not a single one. You wait. You do everything that you can to be able to delay that until you get a new president in there. And make sure that Biden gets fucking elected, because now the shit is really fucking real. Fuck me. Dems are useless. We're fucked.
Yeah, I wanted to reserve my comments on how I feel about the Democratic Party, but I'm still holding out the hope that they also get their shit together.
It's getting ratioed. Oh no. I don't want to look at. It's got 1.9k retweets and 1.8k likes.
Oof. Wait, what? What are we talking about? What?
The initial tweet.
Oh,
wait, never mind. But yeah, this is.
Yeah, no, this is Christmas for a lot of fucking Republicans right now, but fuck.
Chat, how's everyone doing?
Yeah.
All right. How are y'all doing? Vibe check. How are you doing?
Well.
I think that's where I can describe myself. Oof.
Yeah, not many words right now.
Hey,
listen. I just have a lot of feelings, so just no comment.
Listen, if you ever wanted a vote for Biden argument, if you ever wanted one, I mean, I've been saying this since the beginning, right? I've always, like, I think that the first time someone asked me about, like, a Bernie or bust opinion, I always led with the Supreme Court is going to become a fucking issue. Well, guess what, fam?
Now it is.
It's a fucking goddamn issue now. So this is no time to be principled. This is no time to be the most principled corpse on the pile of bodies when fascism comes, all right? The shit is real right fucking now. And if we do not get in a Democratic president, we will, like, all of our civil rights for, like, the next 50 years will be fucked. All right? They will be completely and utterly fucked.
Yep.
And that's my take.
This is the only reason why I voted for Hillary back in 2016. Well, primarily the reason why I voted for Hillary Clinton back in 2016 is that even though I didn't agree with a lot of what Hillary did, I knew that to replace at the time Scalia, if she could have replaced him with liberal and probably with one or two more judges, we would have been in a very, very good position right now in terms of the Supreme Court. Or RBG would have stepped down. We could have just replaced her with someone else. And now it's like the reverse. Now it's the Republicans that have been in the position. They put two judges. Now they can put another one in. Trump won't try to go for a moderate. He's not going to do a moderate because his recent pick, not Kavanaugh, the one before that, has pissed him off with a couple of rulings. Like, for example, the one that said that you can't discriminate based on sexual orientation.
Oh yeah, Gorsuch. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know that was surprising that Gorsuch actually. No, and I read the opinion. It was really interesting because I remember, and if people recall back, I had an interview with an ACLU attorney on here. I fucking love my connections. I know so many people at this point. Holy shit. But yeah, so basically, like, what they speculated was something to the effect that basically, what likely happened was there was a lot of back ends work with, especially, like, probably the clerks on the Supreme Court for that case. Like, it was some combination of A, Gorsuch wanted to be recognized as being on like the correct side of history, and B, he probably like because people are allowed to submit like amendments or like suggestions for opinions if you're going to be joining for the majority, right? Like people are allowed to. So what happened that's a lot more likely is that you probably had like some clerks who worked for some of the more progressive justices who submitted a lot of very like good suggestions for edits to Gorsuch's opinion. So no, this is probably like honestly like the hot take is that Bostic v. Clayton County is probably like the product of, I mean, like, yeah, you know, there was a persuasion element. Like the court had to be persuaded to the merits of the petitioner. But also that I can't remember. I think it was the petitioner. I can't remember. But also that the clerks really did a lot of heavyweight pulling in that. Hobbs, unmute yourself. You need to. We need to talk about this bullshit. I see you in there.
Yeah. Sorry, Hobbs. Take off the mute. It's Friday night.
I'm here. Sorry, I'm also talking to Katie on the other end of this, so that's
okay.
Why.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, but I'm here. I'm going back and forth, but I'm trying to be like emotional support for other, a lot of people right now because I'm worried about people in the aftermath of this news. So,
yeah,
not necessarily Katie, but everyone in general here, and some other people that I know here in the area, local LGBT people. So I'm just trying to like, I'm all right. I'm feeling fine, but I know that other people are not because I handle grief very differently than a lot of other people do, and I handle stress differently. So I'm just I'm spreading myself thin right now. But what do you want to talk about? What do you want me to talk about on here? I agree with what you said earlier, by the way.
Do you have any other? I mean, like, do you have any other sort of like legal based takes about like the implications of this aside from what I've already said, or do you mostly just like agree with my take?
I mean, there is the slightest bit of hope that they might be able to drag their feet at least a little bit on this, but I don't think that they're going to be able to stop a new appointment
you not think
in the time that we have.
I can't remember,
I don't
know. What are the requirements for being able to get an appointment through?
It's all in the codes of how the Senate works, and I haven't.
Well, this isn't like the Senate. Wait, hold on. I thought it has to go through the House then the Senate.
No, it's just the Senate.
No, yeah.
Are you goddamn serious?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the Senate.
Yeah, so there's nothing we can really do because this also happened back in 2016 when Scalia died. Like Obama was trying to get his pick through.
Yeah, and they stonewalled everything.
Yeah, they stonewalled saying that we won't pick until after the election, which is pretty much why I voted. I went straight to vote for Hillary as soon as possible. More importantly, because of the Supreme Court pick. And in fact, even back then, on the flip side, Republicans, the reason why some Republicans I knew that voted for Trump was only because of the Supreme Court. That's it. Like they didn't care about the wall or anything like that. So, and again, here we are back in now we are here in 2020. We're a month away, 2 months away from an election, but fucking the Republicans are still in control of the Senate, and yeah, they could literally just force through a pick right now, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Fuck, I hate this year so much.
This year is terrible. This is the worst timeline. This is actually the worst timeline.
I just want to put out here real quick. If anyone is really struggling mentally this evening, there are resources available. I know that we have some of that posted in other places on the chat, but I want to make sure that if somebody needs those resources, that they're not afraid to reach out and take advantage of that right now. I just want to put that out there. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, good.
I think I'll need that as well.
Hey, yeah, no, that's actually really good. Hey, listen, and I'll leave this because I'm probably gonna. Fuck, I have to clip and upload this. I don't know what else to say on this other than listen. If you are in the Discord, we have a lot of resources here available to help you, mental health, safety, wellness. Please reach out if you need to. But this is listen. It's been a bumpy ride. It's about to get a lot bumpier, but understand that there's a wide community both here in this small capacity that we have, but also just in a larger sense that I think at this point we'll need to come a lot. We'll have to come together in the near future, because this is one of those things where it's kind of like you worry about it happening because it's one of those worst case scenario sorts of things, but you don't really register it until it happens. Well, it's fucking happening.
Yeah.
All right.
I think the ray of hope here also is that Supreme Court justices can be impeached. Now they have to be impeached for some actual, the Constitution isn't very clear on what that is. It's just it's basically the same thing that the president can be impeached for, which is high crimes and misdemeanors. So it's very possible that, and I fully foresee that, if/when, Biden gets elected, there's going to be a lot of investigations into a lot of the shit that's been going on in our country, especially if the Democrats manage to hold on to the House as well as gain the Senate. There's going to be a lot of investigations into, the amount of corruption that's been going on, the amount of fraud that's been going on, the amount of, backroom activity and people basically filling their own pocket. I mean, let's all be real here. I mean, Trump is only in the office so that he can line his own pockets. That's he doesn't give a shit about even the people that vote for him. We've seen that time and time again with his response to the coronavirus and all of that. So I think we're going to see a lot come out of that. And it's very possible that people will, if these investigations go on, action will be taken to undo some of what's been done. So just kind of hold that out as hope. There's always, light at the end of these tunnels. And I know that this is a difficult time, and I know that, these next couple of months are going to be really stressful for a lot of people, but there's always hope out there. And there's always others that will be here to support you, no matter what. So
you're an American and you're eligible to vote. Go
True.
fucking vote. Just
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
vote. Listen, Joe Biden, he disgusts the shit out of me. If this is the worst thing I'm ever going to do in my life, like in my adult life, I will gladly make this the worst thing I'll ever do in my life, and that's to vote for Joe Biden. Because who the fuck am I to say? Everyone knows what will happen if Trump gets reelected. So just go fucking vote, please. Just vote.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can say.
The other thing that I'll say on the voting front is that there are opportunities and places where people can sign up to be both poll observers and volunteers to help with polls. I know that they've had a shortage of personnel, so look online, do some Google searches. You'll find the resources there. And if your local area needs some of that help, I'm planning on being a neutral poll observer just to make sure that no bullshit's going down at the polls here in Raleigh. Because frankly, I don't trust some of these fucking nutcases around here. But I strongly encourage people to kind of look for those opportunities and going above and beyond just voting, making sure that our elections are still free and fair, and making sure that there isn't some, there's going to be shady shit regardless, but doing all that we can to decrease that as much as possible. So sorry, I know I'm speaking a lot, but I just
This is all good. This is all good information. If no one else has anything to say, I am so far out of spoons at this point. And I'm also very hungry, so I'm probably gonna end the stream there. Who do we wanna? We have 34 viewers on the stream. Pog, join the Discord if you haven't. Insert pitch. It's a rather somber moment, and I'm whatever. I don't have the energy for it. Where do we want to send people? Give me a place to send people. H-Bomb is streaming. What's H-Bomb's Twitch?
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't know H-Bomb
I didn't know either.
did streams. I just thought, wow, I'm so out of touch with BirdTube. What is wrong with me? Yeah. I don't know. Is Vosh on? No.
Super Mario 3D All Stars? What? Oh, Chelsea Manning is streaming. All right, we can send people over to Chelsea. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Please go do something that just makes you happy. And focus on your own health and well-being. All right. That's all.
Take care, Riley.
Good night. Take care.
Night. And